Chapter 1029. In the blink of an eye, two titular disciples, Monk Formless and Tao being Malevolent Earth, died. Outside the three tribulations domain, it was silent. Many spectating cultivators looked at Su Zimo in shock, as though they had seen a ghost. Nobody expected that Su Zimo would be so domineering after returning after just 20 days. The four titular disciples joined forces, and Tao being Hidden Death was hiding nearby, waiting for an opportunity to strike. The outcome of this battle was the death of two titular disciples. The number one monster incarnate of history had truly risen. That thought flashed through the minds of many cultivators at the same time. They were not the only ones. At that moment, Tao being Heavenly Dipper and Tao being Zephyr Thunder's eyes were filled with shock as well. This person's momentum is already established. Who can suppress him in this Tao inheritance ground? At that moment, both of them felt their hearts skip a beat. There were already four titular disciples who died in the hands of Su Zimo. Who could withstand the might of an invincible force created by the blood of a titular disciple? When a butcher killed too many dogs, an invisible aura would form around him. Any dog with a bit of intelligence would be able to sense it and would not dare to approach. Even the fiercest dog would have to flee with its tail between its legs if the butcher glared at it. However, Su Zimo was killing titular disciples right now. He was killing titular disciples like dogs. At the same time that he killed Tao being Malevolent Earth forcefully with his Essence Spirit secret skill, Su Zimo's Essence Spirit became extremely weak and he even felt dizzy. He stood rooted to the spot motionlessly. In reality, this was the only chance for Tao being Zephyr Thunder, Tao being Heavenly Dipper and Tao being Hidden Death to attack. Unfortunately, the three of them were stunned by the scene of Tao being Malevolent Earth's death. They hesitated and did not make a move to fight or retreat. Su Zimo stood still for a moment before regaining his senses. He swallowed a few elixirs and put away the mystic magnet mountain. With a cold gaze, he strode towards Tao being Heavenly Dipper. Tao being Heavenly Dipper and the other two were hesitant. However, Su Zimo was a decisive person. These titular disciples did not care about their reputation and entered the Tao inheritance ground to join forces to kill him, causing Demoness Ji and Mingzhen to almost die. The moment he walked out of the three tribulations domain, he was prepared to start a massacre. Tao being Heavenly Dipper was a titular disciple after all. When he saw Su Zimo charging over, he quickly calmed down. In his eyes, there were stars flickering, mysterious and unfathomable. Su Zimo, you've only just reached the return to void stage. How much energy and techniques do you have left? Tao Master Heavenly Dipper shouted with a wanton might. His words were also a reminder to Tao being Zephyr Thunder and Tao being Hidden Death who was in the dark. He wanted the two of them to strengthen their confidence and continue working together to kill Su Zimo. It's enough to kill you. Su Zimo arrived before Tao being Heavenly Dipper with a murderous aura. With a wave of his left hand, the creation Qinglian shone brightly and tore through the void, releasing streams of chaos chi towards Tao being Heavenly Dipper. Tao being Heavenly Dipper was alarmed. Although the jade green lotus looked weak and fragile, it was actually terrifyingly powerful and could even shatter Khanate Tao being dermic weapons. This was the increase in combat strength that dermic weapons could bring to a cultivator. Many times, a powerful dermic weapon could even help a cultivator kill someone of a higher cultivation level. Tao being Heavenly Dipper's eyes flickered with a calm expression. First, he channeled the astral elephant saber that his sect had passed down from the ancient times and slashed at the creation Qinglian. Thereafter, he gripped Heaven Splitter tightly with his other hand and stabbed it viciously towards Su Zimo's chest. Saber intent burst forth. Although the astral elephant saber was also a Khanate Tao being dermic weapon, it had been passed down through the ages and even with the might of the creation Qinglian, it could not shatter it instantly. Furthermore, Tao being Heavenly Dipper's counterattack was not only a passive defense, but also a powerful counterattack from Heaven Splitter. Two gigantic stars appeared in Tao being Heavenly Dipper's eyes, replacing his pupils. All of a sudden, without any warning, two beams of starlight shot out from Tao being Heavenly Dipper's eyes and pierced towards Su Zimo's face. The legacy visual technique of Heavenly Dipper sect was extremely powerful. Even against the invincible might of killing 4 titular disciples, Dao being Heavenly Dipper was fearless and counterattacked forcefully, releasing all his trump cards. When he saw that, Dao being Zephyr Thunder's eyes flashed with lightning. Narrowing his eyes, he made up his mind and moved, charging towards Su Zimo's side. Dao being Heavenly Dipper's methods were suffocating. After all, there was only one creation Qinglian. If the two of them worked together, they could definitely kill Su Zimo here. The moment stars appeared in Dao being Heavenly Dipper's eyes, Su Zimo's right eye burst with sword beams. The sword beams formed a sword formation in midair. Candlelight sword formation. Starlight descended and collided with the sword formation with a deafening bang. The sword formation dissipated instantly and starlight scattered in a blinding manner. Dao being Heavenly Dipper felt his vision blaze and narrowed his eyes instinctively. When he opened his eyes once more, his body shuddered and he dodged to the side, as though he was pulled by some mysterious force. His 2 sabers showed signs of leaving his hands as well, and the saber intent that he had just condensed dissipated instantly. Beside Su Zimo stood a gray mountain peak that emitted a mysterious aura and sucked in Dao being Heavenly Dipper's 2 sabers. The moment Dao being Zephyr Thunder arrived behind Su Zimo, the Zephyr Thunder hammer in his hands slanted and he staggered, almost being pulled over by the Mystic Magnet Mountain as well. The ancient unique treasure, Mystic Magnet Mountain. After Su Zimo killed Dao being Malevolent Earth, he had already retrieved the treasure. At this critical moment, he released it and instantly dispelled the combined attacks of the 2 titular disciples. Although the 2 titular disciples' attacks stopped, Su Zimo's movements did not slow down at all. The Emerald Lotus platform descended and smashed down viciously on Dao being Heavenly Dipper's head. At that moment, Dao being Heavenly Dipper wielded 2 sabers and was sucked in by the Mystic Magnet Mountain as though he was stuck in a swamp. If he did not let go, there was no way he could avoid the creation Qinglian. However, the moment he let go, he would lose 2 connate dermic weapons. In a flash, Dao being Heavenly Dipper made a decision and released his grip. He gave up on the connate dermic weapons and retreated, wanting to turn and escape. Right then, a strange black glint shone in Su Zimo's eyes. Caught off guard, Dao being Heavenly Dipper exchanged glances and his mind went blank for a moment with a bang. Heavenly Fiend Eye. Starlight shone brightly in Dao being Heavenly Dipper's consciousness, creating raging waves. Dao being Heavenly Dipper jolted awake instantly. It was another visual technique. Dao being Heavenly Dipper broke out in cold sweat. If it was anyone else, even if they were not controlled by the Heavenly Fiend Eye, they would not have woken up so quickly. However, that slight delay was enough for Dao being Heavenly Dipper to escape Qinglian's attack range. His palm pulled at his waist and directly crushed a jade ornament hanging on his waist. Swoosh! A bedazzling light flashed and enveloped him. Protection dermic weapon. Boom! At the same time that the protection dermic weapon was formed, the creation Qinglian collided with it with a loud bang. Crack, crack, crack. With a single strike, the creation Qinglian shattered the protection dermic weapon's barrier. Dao being Heavenly Dipper made use of the opportunity to retreat. Su Zimo flicked his wrist and the creation Qinglian spun in his palm. The seemingly weak lotus leaf brushed past Dao being Heavenly Dipper's throat gently. Shing! A stream of blood spewed out. Dao being Heavenly Dipper's head was severed neatly. The edges of the lotus leaf were sharper than divine weapons. Chapter 1030. Although Dao being Heavenly Dipper was a titular disciple with rich experience and knowledge, he knew nothing about creation Qinglian. Or rather, there were not many people in the cultivation world who knew about creation Qinglian. Dao being Heavenly Dipper could not have imagined that the crystalline lotus leaves that were as thin as a cicada's wings would possess such terrifying lethality. This kind of killing method was really unconventional and illogical. However, the outcome was extremely cruel. His head was severed and his body was crippled. A glowing figure flew out from the head. Dao being Heavenly Dipper's essence spirit had a terrified expression and wanted to escape like a stray dog. Su Zimo chanted Sanskrit and the damning mantra descended. Dao being Heavenly Dipper's essence spirit shuddered, and the light that was initially revolving around it dimmed significantly. Ma! The damning mantra sounded again. Dao being Heavenly Dipper's body shuddered once more, and the light on his essence spirit was almost negligible. But Su Zimo did not stop at all and released 4 damning mantras consecutively, not giving Dao being Heavenly Dipper any chance to catch his breath. Dao being Heavenly Dipper's essence spirit paused in midair step by step. He had just taken 4 steps when cracks appeared on his primordial spirit. Without the protection of his body, his essence spirit could not withstand the repeated impact of the 4 damning mantras, and his life force disappeared as he fell from midair. Dao being Heavenly Dipper was dead. The initially restless crowd had long quietened down and was as silent as cicadas in winter. All the cultivators held their breaths and focused, as though they were suppressed by an inexplicable aura. They did not dare to speak, afraid that a calamity would befall them. Including Dao being Heavenly Dipper, there were already 5 titular disciples who had died in the Dao inheritance ground. Furthermore, all of them died in the hands of a single person. What was even more frightening was that there was a high chance that this number would increase once more. Dao being Zephyr Thunder was retreating. Finally, a hint of panic appeared in his eyes. What treasure? What Purple Thunder manual? He did not want any of it. It did not matter even if his reputation was ruined. Right now, he only wanted to leave the Dao inheritance ground alive. This place was simply a nightmare for titular disciples. Right then, Su Zimo turned around slowly and looked at Dao being Zephyr Thunder with a bone-chilling gaze. Dao being Zephyr Thunder realized that he might not be able to escape. Araki Takashi, you've killed too many people this time. Daoist Zephyr Thunder suddenly spoke. Su Zimo raised his eyebrows and asked, "So what?" Dao being Zephyr Thunder said, "Titular disciples have an extremely high status in the various super sections. The super sects might not bother about you killing other cultivators of the sect. However, if you kill a titular disciple, the major sects will definitely not let this matter rest. By now, there are already 5 titular disciples who have died in your hands. This means that you've already offended 5 super sects. 100 Refinement Sect alone can't protect you. If Extreme Fire's attitude is tough, the only outcome is for 100 Refinement Sect to be destroyed along with you." Su Zimo's expression was calm as he asked with a faint smile, "So?" Dao being Zephyr Thunder was enraged. He had said so much, but Su Zimo did not take it seriously at all. Given his status and reputation in the cultivation world, who would dare to be so rude and look down on him? However, he suppressed his anger before long. Due to the circumstances, he could only endure it. Dao being Zephyr Thunder took a deep breath and said in a deep voice, "Therefore, you've already killed enough titular disciples. If you attack me again, you'll have to face the revenge of the 6 super sections. You can't withstand it." "Oh," Su Zimo replied nonchalantly and said indifferently, "So what? I'll kill however many come. The reason why I, Su Zimo, am where I am today is because I stepped on the corpses of countless paragons." Fufu. Dao being Zephyr Thunder laughed as well. "Araki Takashi, I don't think you understand what I mean. If the 6 super sects want revenge, they won't be looking for void reversions, but Dharma Daojun, a conjoint body mighty figure." A commotion broke out in the crowd. Many cultivators knew that Dao being Zephyr Thunder's words were definitely not meant to scare Su Zimo. The death of a titular disciple was definitely a huge matter for the super sects. It was normal for Dharma Daojun to appear or alert a conjoint body mighty figure. "There's something I've never understood," Su Zimo smiled gently and asked. "In the Dao inheritance ground this time round, you guys joined forces to kill me, but I killed you instead. How can the sects behind you have the cheek to seek revenge from me? Furthermore, they even have to send out Dharma Daojun, a conjoint body mighty figure?" Dao being Zephyr Thunder felt a burning sensation on his face. Normally speaking, in the cultivation world, even if someone died in a fight between cultivators of the same cultivation realm, the experts of the sects would not appear. That was because if the conflict escalated, there was a high chance that it would cause a chaotic battle between 2 major sects or even multiple factions. The situation would be out of control. Since ancient times, there had been countless painful lessons like this. Therefore, generally speaking, even if one party died in a fight between cultivators of the same cultivation realm, it could only be because they were inferior and there would not be any sect experts seeking revenge. However, Su Zimo's situation was different. Behind him was a declining 100 Refinement sect. However, 100 Refinement sect was only one of the unorthodox groups. Even with an expert like Extreme Fire, he would not be able to stop super sects such as the Immortal, Buddhist, and Fiend sects. Most importantly, Su Zimo had already incurred a feud with the super sections. They would definitely not allow such a terrifying monster incarnate to grow. Out of fear, the super sects would definitely take action. If such a monster incarnate were to advance to the Dharma characteristic realm, there would probably not be many people in the entire cultivation world who could suppress him. No matter what, you've already offended so many sections. It's not good for you to incur the wrath of Zephyr Thunder Palace, Tao being Zephyr Thunder said in a deep voice. Although his words were beautiful, many cultivators could tell that Tao being Zephyr Thunder was begging for mercy. Su Zimo sneered internally. Even if he wanted to stop, Zephyr Thunder Palace would definitely not let him off. As long as he did not hand over the Purple Thunder Manual, Zephyr Thunder Palace would continue to hunt him down. There's something else that you're wrong about. Su Zimo looked at Tao being Zephyr Thunder and said slowly, since I've already offended so many sects, I don't mind adding Zephyr Thunder Palace to the list. Crackle. In a flash, Su Zimo had already vanished from the spot and charged towards Tao being Zephyr Thunder. Zephyr Thunder escape. As though he was prepared, Tao being Zephyr Thunder did not say anything and turned to flee with a violent gust of wind and lightning. The two cultivators were extremely fast and passed through the crowd instantly. Suddenly, a pair of gigantic dermic power wings grew from Su Zimo's back. Ethereal wings was a secret skill comprehended by an ancient mighty figure through observation of the Rakshasa race. Although his speed was far from the frightening level of the Rakshasa race, Su Zimo's speed doubled once more with lightning escape. Kill! Su Zimo roared and thunderclap kill burst forth. Boom! Tao being Zephyr Thunder felt as though thunder had exploded in his ears and his blood chi surged. It was extremely uncomfortable and his movement technique slowed down. Right at that moment, Su Zimo caught up from behind and waved the creation Qinglian in his hands, smashing it towards Tao being Zephyr Thunder with a flickering light. Chapter 1031. Araki Takashi, you've gone too far. Tao being Zephyr Thunder twisted his body in midair with widened eyes. With a long roar, he swung his Zephyr Thunder hammer towards the creation Qinglian. Boom! The creation Qinglian collided with the Zephyr Thunder hammer with a loud bang. The Zephyr Thunder hammer was a legacy dermic weapon of Zephyr Thunder Palace from the ancient era. Although the creation Qinglian was strong, it could not shatter it with a single strike. However, Tao being Zephyr Thunder did not have it that good. The power of the creation Qinglian surged into his body through the Zephyr Thunder hammer, causing him to fall rapidly. Even his arm that wielded the Zephyr Thunder hammer was trembling slightly. In melee combat, he was no match for Su Zimo at all. Furthermore, Su Zimo possessed a killing weapon like the creation Lotus platform. Apocalyptic 5 Thunders. As Tao being Zephyr Thunder retreated, he conjured hand seals and released the legacy phenomenon of Zephyr Thunder Palace in the form of a dermic art. Rumble. Boom. Boom. In the firmaments, the dark clouds were thick like lead and shone with bolts of lightning. Dull thunder rumbled as though a god was riding a chariot and galloping recklessly. There were a total of 5 divine thunderbolts in the apocalyptic 5 thunders. Each one was more terrifying than the last. If 5 of them were gathered, they would have the power to destroy the world. Tao being Zephyr Thunder believed that Su Zimo had expended a huge amount of dermic powers after fighting the 4 of them consecutively. At that moment, he did not have much dermic powers left and it would be difficult for him to defend against his apocalyptic 5 thunders. In reality, Tao being Zephyr Thunder was right. In Su Zimo's current state, his essence spirit was weak and it was indeed difficult for him to conjure dermic arts. However, he had the creation Qinglian. After the creation Qinglian entered maturity, Not only did its power increase tremendously, there were also many mysterious and shocking aspects to it. Su Zimo injected the remaining dermic powers in his body into the creation Qinglian. With a single thought, the creation Qinglian expanded rapidly. In the blink of an eye, it surpassed Su Zimo. Its gigantic lotus flower floated in midair and blocked the first divine thunderbolt that descended with ease. This is only the first one. The more powerful ones are yet to come. Dao being Zephyr Thunder grit his teeth and channeled his dermic powers furiously, changing hand seals. Before long, a second divine thunder was condensed beneath the dark clouds. You have no chance, Su Zimo said lightly. He loosened his grip, and under countless gazes, creation Qinglian rose rapidly, crashing into the dark clouds in the sky. Between heaven and earth, everything was filled by this Qinglian. The stem of the lotus was jade green and straight, reaching into the sky. The gigantic lotus leaves blotted out the sky, as if they were going to envelop all the cultivators in this world. The azure lotus platform broke through the ink-black clouds. The 6 layers of lotus petals bloomed layer by layer, emitting endless rays of light. This scene was too shocking. All the cultivators were incomparably tiny before this Qinglian. This is the real creation, Qinglian. That was the only thought left in the minds of many cultivators. Their eyes were widened and their mouths were agape in shock as they exclaimed at the same time. A Qinglian rose from the ground, wanting to break through the firmaments and shatter the void. The Qinglian swayed and rays of light filled the skies. The entire space of the Dao inheritance ground trembled and shuddered. Many cultivators had a feeling that if not for the wills of the ancient mighty figures stabilizing this space, the creation Qinglian would have been able to pierce a hole in the heavens. The thick dark clouds that Dao being Zephyr Thunder condensed were shattered into pieces by the creation green lotus with a gentle sway. Rays of light filled the air and pierced the dark clouds with holes. Whatever divine thunder, it instantly vanished into thin air. Before the second divine thunder descended, the apocalyptic 5 thunders was already broken through by the creation Qinglian and shattered. Dao being Zephyr Thunder's face was pale. In the face of the creation Qinglian, titular disciples were nothing. It was way too scary. Who would be able to restrain such a monster incarnate with the support of such a terrifying dermic weapon in the future? Shoo! A green stream of light flashed. The creation Qinglian returned to its original size and returned to Su Zimo's palm. Su Zimo's gaze was cold as he charged towards Dao being Zephyr Thunder, not giving him a chance to catch his breath. What other methods do you have? Release them all. Su Zimo hollered and waved the creation Qinglian gently, scattering endless rays of light that enveloped Dao being Zephyr Thunder. A look of despair flashed through Dao being Zephyr Thunder's eyes. What other methods did he have? Even if he was in his peak condition, he could only die here against the suppression of the creation Qinglian. Suddenly he felt a hint of regret. If he had retreated in time, if he had been more decisive and if he had not been so greedy, he might not have died here. Thousands of thoughts surged into his mind and turned into an indignant roar. Dao being Zephyr Thunder was a titular disciple after all and would definitely not allow himself to be captured. After severing all his thoughts, he swung the Zephyr Thunder hammer with both hands, conjuring a tornado that connected the heavens and the earth that charged towards Su Zimo. Boom! The creation Qinglian collided with the tornado with a loud bang. The tornado dissipated and the Zephyr Thunder hammer fell to the side. Dao being Zephyr Thunder opened his mouth and spat out a mouthful of blood, falling weakly to the back. Suddenly, a beam of light flew out from his head and fled into the distance. The crowd was in an uproar when they saw that. Dao being Zephyr Thunder's body was not damaged to the point where he had to abandon it. However, in order to escape, Dao being Zephyr Thunder abandoned his body and released his essence spirit. His speed burst forth and he sped into the distance at an extreme. Phew, Su Zimo chuckled. Dao being Zephyr Thunder's essence spirit, who had not escaped far, suddenly paused and looked ahead in fear. In front of him and behind him, 2 shimmering specks of light shone. They were the sharp seeds of Qinglian. Prior to this, The 52 Qinglian seeds fought against the essence spirit secret skills of the 4 titular disciples. The glow dimmed and their sharpness was gone. They had already returned to the lotus platform. Among the 54 Qinglian seeds, there were still 2 Qinglian seeds left. However, they were unaffected and continued to emit a glow, transforming into 2 flying swords that blocked Dao Being's Zephyr Thunder. Su Zimo had expected that Dao Being Zephyr Thunder's essence spirit would leave his body and release the 2 Qinglian seeds a long time ago. The moment Dao Being Zephyr Thunder's essence spirit moved, the 2 Qinglian seeds had already chased after him. Su Zimo walked towards Dao Being Zephyr Thunder's essence spirit and asked in a seemingly casual manner, "Zephyr Thunder, do you know why I left you for last?" The 4 titular disciples besieged Su Zimo and his counterattacks varied in order. Why? At this point, Dao Being Zephyr Thunder knew that he was going to die. Instead, he calmed down and asked instead. Su Zimo said coolly, "That's because you want my purple thunder manual and I want your green thunder manual." Ha! Dao Being Zephyr Thunder reared his head in laughter. "Araki Takashi, oh Araki Takashi, you're still too young. How can the storage bags of us cultivators contain secret skills of our sex? It's easy for you to kill me, but you're dreaming if you want to obtain the Green Thunder Manual." Dao Being Zephyr Thunder's eyes were filled with mockery, as though he could die in peace if he could deal a blow to Su Zimo before he died. Su Zimo arrived before Dao Being Zephyr Thunder and grabbed his essence spirit in his palm, saying indifferently, "Not necessarily." Soul-searching art. Su Zimo hollered softly. Chapter 1032. This was the first time Su Zimo used the soul-searching art after he devoured the reborn essence spirit of half-martial ancestor Imperial Sky and cultivated the Dao Heart Fiend Seed Sutra. Although there was no essence spirit attack technique in the Dao Heart Fiend Seed Sutra, this essence spirit secret skill was extremely terrifying as well. If used properly, it could be extremely useful. A transparent ball of light appeared in Su Zimo's palm. Dao Being Zephyr Thunder's essence spirit was within and was extremely terrified. Pitch-black fiend chi appeared on the surface of the ball of light and coiled around Dao Being Zephyr Thunder's essence spirit as though it possessed a spirit consciousness. In the blink of an eye, Dao Being Zephyr Thunder's body was coiled with pitch-black fiend chi. Like chains, he was fixed to the ball of light and could not move at all. Immediately after, a large number of unfamiliar memories surged into Su Zimo's mind. The soul-searching art was not without restrictions. If he were to search through all of Dao Being Zephyr Thunder's memories, they would be the memories of a cultivator's entire life. Su Zimo would not be able to withstand it at all. Furthermore, there was a chance that the soul-searching art might fail midway. The best way was to browse quickly. Memories of insignificant information flashed through his mind. He would only stop when there was useful information and extract that portion of memories to memorize. Su Zimo gripped the creation Qinglian in his left hand and shook it gently. He lowered his gaze and memories flashed through his mind one after another. As time passed by, Dao Being Zephyr Thunder's essence spirit in the ball of light was withering at a visible speed. Although his life force was still present, the light on his essence spirit dimmed. Dao Being Zephyr Thunder let out a tragic cry in the ball of light. He felt as though something that belonged to him was being extracted from his body bit by bit irreversibly. It was an extremely uncomfortable feeling. While the soul-searching art extracted memories, it would also cause irreversible damage to the essence spirit. Therefore, even if the essence spirit survived in the end, it would definitely lose its memories or turn into an idiot. All of a sudden, Su Zimo's eyes lit up. The memories that were initially flashing through his mind suddenly paused and began to fade slowly. It was a secret inheritance chamber in Zephyr Thunder Palace. An old man with a dignified expression handed a slightly yellowed ancient book to Dao Being Zephyr Thunder. 3 words were written on the ancient book, Green Thunder Manual. Remember, this Green Thunder Manual is not a complete cultivation technique. It has to be fused with Purple Thunder Manual to form the Great Void Spirit Refinement section. In the Great Void Spirit Refinement section, there's an essence spirit secret skill known as the Wrath of Thunder that's extremely powerful. In the primordial era, Countless experts of the foreign races died under the wrath of thunder. The Zephyr Thunder Palace said Zephyr Zephyr. The scene Zimo Zephyr Zephyr Thunder. Zephyr Zephyr Palace. Zephyr Zephyr Thunder Palaces is a god. Zephy Spirit Zephyrs or Dao Dao Zephyr is? Zephyr Dao Zephyr? This feeling was extremely strange. This was a top-tier cultivation technique obtained by absorbing another person's memories. If this was in the past, Su Zimo would not even dare to think about it. Such a crafty method was completely beyond his understanding. After memorizing the Green Thunder Manual, Su Zimo wanted to continue browsing Dao Being Zephyr Thunder's other memories to see if there were any powerful cultivation techniques or secret skills that he could absorb. However, he suddenly felt the scene before him blur. Immediately after, the fiend chi in the ball of light in his palm snapped. The soul-searching art had already ended. Thankfully, he managed to browse quickly and found an important segment like the Green Thunder Manual. Otherwise, if he were to browse slowly, the soul-searching art might have ended before he could finish reading Dao Being Zephyr Thunder's memories. Within the ball of light, Dao Being Zephyr Thunder's gaze was unfocused and he looked like he was in a daze. There was no pity in Su Zimo's eyes as he exerted strength in his palm and crushed Dao Being Zephyr Thunder's essence spirit. If he were to fall into Dao Being Zephyr Thunder's hands, his outcome would be even more tragic. Dao Being Zephyr Thunder was dead. At this point of the battle, the dust had already settled. Outside the Three Tribulations domain, the four titular disciples surrounded Su Zimo. However, they were completely annihilated and were killed here without a single survivor. Many cultivators looked at the messy battlefield with conflicted expressions. Sigh, to think that this would be the outcome of this battle. As expected of the strongest monster incarnate in history. I heard that his strength is still greatly restricted in this Dao inheritance ground. It's truly hard to imagine how strong this person's combat strength would be if he was outside. Araki Takashi established his Dao and imparted martial arts to all living beings. It might not be a bad thing for the cultivation world for someone with such boldness and magnanimity. Fufu, now that the 6 super sects have suffered such a huge loss, how can they allow Dao Being Araki Takashi to continue growing? They'll definitely attack to kill him. Agreed. If not for the fact that the power of conjoint body mighty figures cannot penetrate the Dao inheritance ground, there would be mighty figures who would not be able to sit still. Many cultivators did not disperse as they discussed softly. In reality, they were not wrong. The death of Dao Being Heavenly Dipper, Dao Being Zephyr Thunder and the other titular disciples had long caused an uproar in the cultivation world outside. Glass Palace, Formless Monastery, Heavenly Dipper Sect, Malevolent Earth Sect, Zephyr Thunder Palace and even Poison Sect were making huge moves as they prepared to kill 100 Refinement Sect. Ever since the catastrophe 10,000 years ago ended, although the blood of the cultivation world had never stopped, there were very few major events that caused conjoint body mighty figures to come out of seclusion. But this time round, more than one conjoint body mighty figure had appeared. Instantly, Tianhuang mainland was in turmoil. Middle continent, 100 Refinement Sect. The news of the Dao inheritance ground had already spread to 100 Refinement Sect. Everyone in the sect was shocked. As for Chigurumon spirit cranes, they were all over Tianhuang mainland. The commotion of Heavenly Dipper Sect, Malevolent Earth Sect, Formless Monastery and other super sects spread to 100 Refinement Sect one after another. In the 100 Refinement Great Hall, Extreme Fire and the others had grim expressions. What should we do? Although Dao Lord White Flames knew that Su Zimo was the disciple of Grandmaster Extreme Fire, he was a little anxious at this moment. As the Patriarch of 100 Refinement Sect, he naturally had to think for 100 Refinement Sect and said in a deep voice, Grandmaster Extreme Fire, please forgive me for being direct. We can't protect Uncle Master Su. He's in big trouble this time round. Extreme Fire frowned slightly and glared, asking coldly, is he to blame for this? What do you expect him to do if those titular disciples join forces to kill him? Is he supposed to stand on the spot and let others slaughter him? The 3 consecutive questions stumped Dao Lord White Flames and he was so anxious that he was sweating profusely. But Tao Lord White Flames was extremely anxious and hesitated to speak. Extreme Fire, White Flames is also thinking for 100 Refinement Sect. Shangguanzi had a calm expression and said in a deep voice, "He's right. 100 Refinement Sect can't protect Su Zimo indeed, even if the 4 unorthodox groups joined forces." The 4 unorthodox groups specialized in unorthodox disciplines such as weapon refinement and talisman creation. In terms of combat strength, they were far inferior to the experts of the 9 immortal sects, 7 fiend sects and 6 Buddhist monasteries. Even after 100,000 years, there might not be an expert like Extreme Fire among the unorthodox groups. Chapter 1033. That's right. Elder Gu nodded as well. We all understand. This child is not bad and even saved your life. You don't want him to die, but the reality is right in front of you. 100 Refinement Sect can't protect him. Elder Gu suggested, why don't we send this child away after he comes out? To where? Shangguanzi frowned. Who in Tianhuang mainland would dare to get involved with this lad? Should we ask Enigma Palace to step in? Elder Gu said in a deep voice, Enigma Palace has always been fair and impartial. Su Zimo is not at fault here. Enigma Palace might be able to protect him. Furthermore, Enigma Palace does have the strength to do so. If there was any faction in Tianhuang mainland that could defend against the attacks of the 6 super sects, it would probably be the most mysterious Enigma Palace. It's useless. Shangguanzi shook her head. If the 6 super sects attack, they don't have to use the excuse of taking revenge for the titular disciple. They just have to say that they're here to slay demons. No matter how strong Enigma Palace is, they wouldn't dare to withstand such immense pressure to protect a cultivator who might be a fiend demon. That's not in line with Enigma Palace's style. Elder Gu and the others knew that Shangguanzi was right. Everyone exchanged glances and sighed deeply. This was a dead end that could not be broken. Extreme Fire's expression was dark and he remained silent. No one knew what he was thinking about. Extreme Fire, let me say something. Don't be angry. Elder Gu was silent for a long time before saying, right now, the only chance of survival is for Su Zimo to leave 100 Refinement Sect and fend for himself. I believe that given this child's temperament, he'll be able to understand us. Elder Gu added, that's right. Tianhuang mainland is boundless and there might be a chance of survival. At the very least, he can head to the 8 demon regions. Actually, he could only deceive himself with that statement. With the conjoint body mighty figures of the 6 super sects of the human race making a move, no demon region would be able to wage a bloody war against the 6 super sects for Su Zimo. Right then, Extreme Fire suddenly said, when he returns, I'll take him away from 100 Refinement Sect. From now on, I have nothing to do with 100 Refinement Sect. Everyone exclaimed and looked at Extreme Fire in disbelief. Everyone understood that the reason why Extreme Fire said that he had nothing to do with 100 Refinement Sect was because he did not want to implicate them. The 6 super sects had no reason to vent their anger on 100 Refinement Sect because of Su Zimo and him. But no one expected that Extreme Fire would actually make such a huge sacrifice for Su Zimo, abandoning everything to bring Su Zimo to the ends of the earth. Extreme Fire, you've just been reborn. There's no need to. Shangguanzi was agitated, her voice choked with sobs, and she could not continue. Extreme Fire patted Shangguanzi's palm gently. A hint of guilt flashed through his eyes as he said gently, Shangguan, I have to let you down again. Shangguanzi shook her head and did not say anything. She only grabbed Extreme Fire's arm and refused to let go. You might have misunderstood me. Extreme Fire said, the reason why I'm so protective of Zimo and even risking my life with him is not because he saved me before. It was because he was a Rocky Takashi. He wanted to establish his Tao. He wanted to establish his Tao for all living beings in the world. That reason alone is enough for me to do everything I can to protect him even if I have to die. Everyone was moved and their hearts skipped a beat. Elder Gu and the others shook their heads and sighed. Back then, the 3 of them pursued Shangguanzi at the same time, but she chose Extreme Fire. All these years, the 2 of them were still indignant. However, just now, they realized the difference between them and Extreme Fire. Right then, 100 refinement sect cultivator rushed in and panted, "Patriarch, seniors, a Dharma Daojun requests an audience outside. He claims to be Shura." Everyone's expressions changed slightly. Dao Lord Shura? What is he doing here? Elder Gu frowned. Hakadojin pondered for a moment before waving his hand. Let him in. Although Dao Lord Shura had a terrible reputation in the cultivation world for being cold-blooded and bloodthirsty, he seemed to have some ties with Su Zimo. Furthermore, 100 Refinement Sect had no feud with Shura. At that moment, there was no need for Shura to come to 100 Refinement Sect to kill anyone. Before long, Yen Beichen strode in expressionlessly and was dressed in long black robes. His face looked unusually pale and he strode in. Hakaridojin and Shangguanzi scanned with their spirit consciousnesses and could not help but frown. Elder Gu of Elixir Yang sect twitched his nose and sniffed, sensing something as well. Yen Beichen was injured. Furthermore, it was an injury to his essence spirit that was extremely difficult to recover from. Extreme Fire asked indifferently, "Shura, why have you come to 100 Refinement Sect?" Shura did not bow either. With a cold expression, he went straight to the point. "If Su Zimo returns and your 100 Refinement Sect wants to abandon him, I'll take him away." At that point, the entire hall fell silent. Hakadojin looked at Yen Beichen with a gentler gaze. Shangguanzi asked, "Where are you taking him? Even Shura sect won't be able to protect him. Don't forget that Malevolent Earth sect is one of the 6 major sections. The world is huge. There's nowhere we can't stay." Yen Beichen was still expressionless as he said indifferently. The cultivators in the hall fell silent. The legendary cold-blooded, heartless and bloodthirsty Shura made the same decision as Extreme Fire after hearing the news of the 6 major sects. He was going to abandon his status and reputation in the cultivation world and protect Su Zimo from now on. Who said that such a person was cold-blooded and heartless? Hakadojin looked at Yen Beichen and said softly, "If I'm not wrong, your essence spirit is severely injured. Were you injured when you killed Dao Lord Immortal Sword and the others?" Yen Beichen remained silent and admitted to it. "It's very difficult for you to recover from your injuries. Instead of resting and recuperating, you want to flee with someone? Don't you want to live anymore?" Hakadojin asked again. "I'll do my best." Yen Beichen lowered his head slightly and replied. Even if he was severely injured, he had to protect Su Zimo and leave. Elder Gu's heart skipped a beat as he lamented, "Rumors are harmful and public opinion is powerful. Now that I've met him today, I finally understand Shura's character." For some reason, Elder Gu felt a lump in his throat and tears welled up in his eyes. He hurried forward and took out a small bottle from his storage bag, handing it to Yen Beichen. "This is a 9 Revolutions Soul Return Elixir. I only have one on me and it's good for your essence spirit injuries. Take it." Everyone's hearts were greatly shaken. The 9 Revolutions Soul Return Elixir was an elixir from the ancient era. The refinement method had long been lost and there would be one less elixir used. Most importantly, the 9 Revolutions Soul Return Elixir was almost the best elixir for repairing one's essence spirit. This elixir was definitely a priceless treasure. In the cultivation world, even conjoint body mighty figures would fight to the death for it. However, Yen Beichen did not appreciate the fact that Elder Gu took out such a precious item. He harumphed and turned his head with a disdainful expression. He was Shura and had never accepted anything from others. How could he accept charity as such? However, he seemed to have thought of something and a conflicted look flashed through his eyes. After hesitating for a long time, he turned to take the bottle and said, "Thank you." Shura had never said a word of thanks in his entire life. But today he broke his vow. "Consume it here and heal your injuries as soon as possible," Extreme Fire said. "As for Zimo, let's wait and see. There might be other solutions." Shura did not say anything and merely put away the bottle carefully without consuming the 9 Revolutions Soul Return Elixir. Extreme Fire and the others were confused but they did not ask further. Chapter 1034. Outside the 3 Tribulations domain, the battle had already ended but many cultivators were still lingering. Many people had yet to recover from the shock just now as they looked at the green-robed cultivator on the battlefield. I reckon that from today onwards, the title of the #1 perfected lord will no longer belong to Araki Takashi. Right now, he should be the #1 Dao being. Not necessarily. Don't forget that there's still Diin. Many cultivators were invigorated. They realized that there might be another world-shaking battle that would be even more terrifying than this one. On the battlefield, Suzumo consumed some elixirs and collected the battlefield while recovering his stamina and essence spirit. After he entered the Dao inheritance ground, almost everyone he killed were titular disciples. Although there were no cultivation techniques or secret skills in the storage bags of titular disciples, there were indeed all sorts of superior-grade elixirs. The belongings of Dao being Heavenly Dipper and the other 3 titular disciples were all good stuff as well. Notwithstanding the items in their storage bags, their destiny dermic weapons were connate dermic weapons that were passed down from the ancient era. In fact, they could even defend against the creation of Qinglian without shattering. Right then, Suzumo's heart skipped a beat and a cold glint shone in his eyes. He turned around slightly and looked into the void not far away. No matter what, Araki Takashi established his Dao and killed 4 titular disciples the moment he entered the void reversion realm. His momentum is truly unstoppable. That's right. Dao being hidden death is the only one who left. Dao being hidden death sure is smart. He did not attack the entire time and managed to avoid a calamity. The discussions of the cultivators did not stop. Dao being hidden death did not go far and hid nearby. When he heard the discussions of the cultivators, he felt a bitter taste in his mouth that he could not express. Ever since the battle broke out, he had been lingering around Suzumo, waiting for an opportunity to deal a fatal blow. However, he did not attack the entire time. It was not that he did not want to, but that he truly did not have the chance. The 4 titular disciples released their essence spirit secret skills at the same time. That time, he had just appeared before hiding again. Even if he had attacked once, he would not have been able to hurt Suzumo in the slightest. That was because Suzumo had an essence spirit dermic weapon that he had yet to use and could defend against his essence spirit secret skill at the very least. This kind of attack was meaningless, so he hid himself again and waited patiently. However, as time passed and the titular disciples died in the hands of Suzumo one after another, he suddenly realized that his chances were getting fewer and fewer. Now that all 4 titular disciples were dead, he did not dare to make a move. Compared to Tiangang and the others, at least I managed to keep my life. Daoist hidden death comforted. Right at this moment he suddenly felt a bone-piercing chill. All the hairs on his body stood on end. Suzumo had turned his head and was staring at his position. Dao being hidden death felt his scalp tingle as he tried his best to circulate the fiend techniques of hidden death sect, calming his aura, bloodline flow, and heartbeat. However, Suzumo did not retract his gaze. He was still staring at his position, and there seemed to be a trace of mockery in his eyes. How is that possible? Dao being hidden death tried his best to control his mind and prevent himself from fluctuating too much. He closed his eyes and retracted the light in his eyes. There's no way he can discover my tracks. This must be a coincidence. Dao being hidden death thought to himself. The methods of the hidden death sect were assassination and concealment. This was the foundation of their sect and also the greatest reliance of the hidden death sect cultivators. Even the Dharma Daojun would not be able to discover his tracks, let alone cultivators of the same cultivation realm. Otherwise, he would have died countless times over the past thousands of years. At this moment, a faint sigh rang out on the battlefield, causing his heart to instantly sink to the bottom of the valley. You didn't escape earlier on. You won't have the chance now. Suzumo looked at the void not far away and his eyes lit up as he attacked brazenly. Initially, many cultivators were confused and did not know what Suzumo was lamenting to the air not far away. However, right after Suzumo attacked, a blurry figure appeared in the void. Dao being hidden death. The crowd was in an uproar. None of them could discover Dao being hidden death's tracks and thought that he had left long ago. To think that he was still captured by Suzumo. That's impossible. Dao being hidden death retreated and shrieked, "Araki Takeshi, how did you discover my tracks?" Just now, he did not reveal any flaws and Suzumo could not have noticed him. However, the current reality was extremely cruel. One chased while the other fled. However, the distance between them was closing rapidly. In just a few breaths, Dao being hidden death could already feel the pressure approaching him from behind, suffocating him. Although he was a titular disciple of Hidden Death sect, his combat strength was far inferior to Dao being Heavenly Dipper and the others. Even Dao being Zephyr Thunder could not escape from Suzumo's pursuit, let alone him. Seeing that he had no chance of escaping, a ferocious glint flashed through Dao being Hidden Death's eyes. He turned around and waved his sleeves, thrusting out a sword that shone with a cold glint towards Suzumo's glabella. At the same time, he activated his Essence Spirit secret skill. God-piercing dagger. A massive spirit consciousness condensed into a dagger and flew out from Dao being Hidden Death's glabella, piercing towards Suzumo instantly. Suzumo's left wrist shone brightly with a Buddhist light, forming a barrier around him with sacred and mysterious golden runes shimmering on it. Mingwang prayer beads. Boom. The dagger stabbed into the golden light barrier, and a loud sound erupted. The dagger dissipated instantly and the barrier shook violently. Although it dimmed significantly, it did not shatter and dissipate. After advancing to the Void Reversion realm, Suzumo activated the Mingwang prayer beads and the Essence Spirit barrier formed by him became even more unshakable. Looking at the incoming sword, Suzumo did not use creation at all. Qinglian reached out with her right hand and placed it on the sword in a seemingly soft manner, coiling and vibrating. The sword was sent flying by his palm. Right then, a cold glint flashed and a chilling killing intent burst forth. There was an almost transparent dagger hidden within the sword earlier on. If one did not look carefully, they would not be able to see anything at all. Shadowless dagger. It was a connate dermic weapon that Hidden Death sect inherited from the ancient times. It was bright and there was not even a shadow. The moment the sword was sent flying, Dao being Hidden Death withdrew the shadowless dagger and stabbed towards Suzumo once more. Fu! Suzumo sneered and opened his palm, grabbing the incoming dagger. The shadowless dagger pierced through Suzumo's flesh and even pierced his palm. However, the dagger was stuck in the gaps between his bones and could not move at all. No matter how Dao being Hidden Death spun, he could not injure Suzumo's right hand. Right then, the initially transparent dagger gradually revealed traces of movement. The shadowless dagger turned incomparably red, like a piece of metal that was burnt through. Divine Phoenix Bone. Dao being Hidden Death's pupils constricted as that thought flashed through his mind. Suzumo took advantage of the situation and raised his palm. The scarlet shadowless dagger streaked through the air with a streak of blood. Dao being Hidden Death's expression froze. I got it. The legacy of the fiend sex that you obtained can see through my tracks. After saying that, half of Dao being Hidden Death's head slid down slowly and his life force dissipated. Dao being Hidden Death's head was sliced into two by the shadowless dagger and his essence spirit could not escape. Dao being Hidden Death was dead. Chapter 1035. At this point of the battle, the 5 titular disciples were completely annihilated. Including Dao being glass and Dao being poison, 7 titular disciples died in the hands of Suzumo and were buried in the Dao inheritance ground. In the future, there were even people who referred to this as Araki Takeshi's establishment of the Dao and the calamity of the titular disciples. It was recorded in history as an important node in the cultivation world. Outside the 3 tribulations domain, many cultivators looked at Suzumo with conflicted gazes. There was caution, fear, jealousy, and admiration. Suzumo put away the shadowless dagger and Dao being Hidden Death's storage bag. If Dao being Hidden Death's tracks were exposed, his combat strength would be far inferior compared to Dao being Heavenly Dipper. However, Dao being Hidden Death was right. The reason why Suzumo was able to discover his tracks was because of the Dao Heart Fiend Seed Sutra. This cultivation technique was passed down from ancient times and was all-encompassing, including many things of the Fiend sections. If this was before this, as long as Dao being hidden death restrained his killing intent, it would be difficult for Su Zimo to discover his tracks even with his spirit perception. But now, after cultivating the Dao Heart Fiend Seed Sutra, he had an indescribable feeling towards the cultivators of Hidden Death Sect. As long as they were within his perception range, even titular disciples would not be able to escape. Su Zimo searched through the battlefield and headed outside. Without saying a word, the crowd automatically opened up a path for him. Passing by the crowd, Su Zimo paused in his tracks and raised his voice. "Where's Dean? Has anyone seen him?" "Over there. When I saw him, he was still chasing after Dao being profound secrets." Immediately, many cultivators stood out from the crowd and pointed over. Unless he intentionally concealed himself, an existence like Dean would attract attention no matter where he went. The Dao inheritance ground was not big and it was easy to find out his location. "Fellow Daoist Araki Takashi, aren't you going to rest?" In the crowd, a cultivator mustered his courage and tried asking, "You've just fought a fierce battle. If you fight Dean again, your chances of winning aren't high, right?" Many cultivators turned to look at him as if they were looking at a dead man. Who was this person in front of him? Daoist Araki Takashi, who had just killed 7 titular disciples, actually dared to say that his chances of winning were not high. "Weren't you courting death?" After the cultivator finished speaking, he seemed to have realized something. He shrunk his neck in fear and was at a loss for what to do. "Dean is nothing." Su Zimo smiled faintly, not minding it at all. His azure robes fluttered as he strode off into the distance. He did not use any dermic powers. He only used the explosive power of his physical body to travel. At the same time, he swallowed a spirit pill to recover his primordial spirit. In his sea of consciousness, the Qinglian of creation swayed gently, and multicolored light filled the sky. The multicolored light on the Qinglian pillars had already dimmed after colliding with the essence soul secret skills of the 4 titular disciples. Now, after returning to the lotus platform, the multicolored light on Qinglian's seed began to gradually recover. It became brighter and brighter, and spiritual energy filled the air. The black-haired essence spirit sat on the lotus platform with endless multicolored light around him. After the Qinglian of creation reached grade 6 and entered maturity, the benefits it had for the essence spirit became even more obvious. Apart from making the essence spirit more condensed and pure by cultivating on the lotus platform, the recovery of the power of the essence spirit was also shockingly fast. He believed that by the time he arrived at Diyin's location, his essence spirit would be mostly recovered. No elixirs could compare to that recovery speed. Su Zimo gathered the power of the immortal, Buddhist and fiend Taoist sects and spent a huge amount of time, effort to nurture the Qinglian of creation. Now, the Qinglian of creation had finally brought him a huge creation. In a ruin, there were broken walls everywhere. A gigantic and thick stone pillar rose into the skies with a purple figure sitting on it. His black hair was like a waterfall and his eyes were tightly shut, exuding the might of a sovereign. Dao being chaos essence seen. When he caught sight of the Qinglian that rose into the skies, he stopped in his tracks and no longer chased after Lin Xuanji. Instead, he sat there with his eyes closed to adjust his condition. Right now, he had already rested for more than an hour and his stamina had recovered to its peak. He vaguely guessed that Heavenly Dipper and the others would not be able to stop Su Zimo from exiting the 3 tribulations domain this time round. Su Zimo would definitely come looking for them. "Dean, why aren't you chasing anymore?" On a broken wall not far away, a slightly chubby and beardless Taoist priest in gray robes sat on it and looked at Dean with a smile. It was Lin Xuanji. "I say, you've been chasing me like a mad dog for 20 days. I'm still not used to the sudden silence." Lin Xuanji was a disciple of Enigma Palace and could not defeat Dean in terms of combat strength. However, it was extremely difficult for Dean to kill him as well. Lin Xuanji sat on the wall and waved at Dean, letting out strange sounds of teasing a dog. Dean was expressionless and turned a deaf ear. Lin Xuanji was trying to disrupt his mental state on purpose, but he was unmoved. "Say, Dean, how confident are you against Su Zimo?" Even though Di-in did not reply, Lin Xuanji was not idle and asked with a grin. Di-in remained silent. Lin Xuanji analyzed pretentiously, "Look, Su Zimo was already able to kill titular disciples when he was at the nascent soul realm. I reckon that he must have obtained some sort of opportunity and is now at the void reversion realm. Can you win against Su Zimo who is at the void reversion realm?" Finally, a ripple appeared in Di Yin's heart. If Su Zimo was at the void reversion realm, the outcome of this battle would be unpredictable. Lin Xuanji smiled gently. Su Zimo has established his Dao heart and is shining brightly. If he really comes looking for us, it means that Heavenly Dipper and the others are most likely dead. You can't stop the momentum of killing many titular disciples. Dean, if I were you, I would leave the Dao inheritance ground right now. He won't leave. Right then, a calm voice sounded from afar. A figure appeared on the horizon and sped over at lightning speed, arriving before them in the blink of an eye. "Brother Su, you're indeed at the void reversion realm." Lin Xuanji was delighted. If Su Zimo was at the void reversion realm, his chances of winning this battle would naturally increase. When Su Zimo saw that Lin Xuanji was fine, he heaved a sigh of relief and nodded with a smile. "Brother Su, how do you know that he won't leave?" Lin Xuanji asked. Su Zimo said, "Dean was already afraid when he invited me to the Dao inheritance ground. If he can't kill me in this Dao inheritance ground, he'll never have the chance. This time round, if he flees without a fight, I'll become his mental demon that he won't be able to get rid of." Dean opened his eyes and stood up. His black hair danced and his aura rose continuously as he said slowly, "You're right. I won't be at ease if I don't kill you." Fufu. Suddenly, Su Zimo laughed. "Dean, do you know that I, Araki Takashi, have never seen you as an opponent? In my eyes, you're not worthy." Su Zimo said indifferently, "You've already lost the moment you set up the battlefield in the Dao inheritance ground." Di Yin's heart skipped a beat. Sensing something, Su Zimo's eyes lit up and he attacked brazenly. Chapter 1036. At their level, even the slightest flaw would be caught. The moment Di Yin's heart skipped a beat, Su Zimo charged forward and punched the gigantic stone pillar with a deafening bang. Rumble. Boom. The stone pillar collapsed instantly and sand flew everywhere as dust billowed. Firmament technique. Accompanied by his shout, he waved both hands and dermic powers surged, as though he was moving the entire firmament, suppressing down slowly. Yi Tiancheng had released the firmament technique once at the Thousand Crane Tea Party. At that time, Yi Tiancheng's firmament technique was to weave a firmament with dermic powers to suppress. However, Di Yin's firmament technique was much more terrifying than his. It was as though his hands were tugging at the entire firmament, bringing with them a boundless might and the might of the universe that enveloped over. The firmament was like a blanket that suppressed the 8 desolates. This was the true might of the universe and was not something that a human could defend against. Many cultivators had just arrived when they saw this scene. They were all shocked and let out cries of surprise. "They're fighting!" The power of that dermic art is so frightening that most heaven and earth dharma characteristics won't be able to withstand it. That's the true firmament technique. Let's see how Araki Takashi deals with it. The difference between the two of them is still obvious in terms of dermic powers. Su Zimo had just entered the void reversion realm. However, Di Yin's cultivation was already at the late-stage void reversion realm. Su Zimo's expression was unchanged as his hands moved continuously, conjuring hand seals one after another. Rumbling fiend chi that was pitch black as ink flowed out of his fingertips and condensed into a gigantic scythe between his hands. Heavenly Fiend Scythe. Araki Takashi is recovering so quickly. Outside the 3 tribulations domain, he didn't even have the dermic powers to release escape techniques. To think that he can release such a terrifying dermic art now. The crowd was shocked. Slay. Su Zimo roared and pointed upwards. The pitch-black scythe tore through the air and shrouded in fiend chi. Its killing intent surged and even the firmaments could not suppress it. Sizzle. The pitch-black scythe streaked across the sky, emitting an ear-piercing sound. The entire sky had been sliced into two by the giant pitch-black scythe. That dermic art contained half-martial ancestor Imperial Sky's lifetime comprehension of the Fiend Dao. Its terrifying might made up for Su Zimo's lack of dermic powers. "Alright," Dean bellowed. When the voice first sounded, he was still at the end of the sky. By the time the heavenly demon scythe broke through the firmament technique, he had already rushed in front of Su Zimo. He flicked away his huge palm and slammed it towards Su Zimo. The palm seemed to have disappeared in midair and transformed into a gigantic millstone. It carried the power of distortion, suppression, and grinding. The void was also distorted and deformed. Great Chaos Palm. At the same time, the blood chi within Di Yin's body burst forth and a series of shuddering tsunamis rumbled. Blood like a tide. He had cultivated his bloodline to the extreme. When Di Yin charged over, his pupils constricted gradually. It was as though a full moon was being devoured continuously in a frightening manner. Ocular technique, Eclipse Eye. A cold glint flashed through Di Yin's eyes. At the same time, he released his blood chi, Chaos Essence Sex secret skill, and even ocular technique. Di Yin's aura was torrential and he held nothing back. He wanted to maximize his advantage. He believed that Su Zimo, who could not use his blood chi, was definitely not his match in melee combat. Di Yin's movement technique was way too fast and his attacks were unprecedentedly ferocious. Even if the four titular disciples joined forces, they could not compare to Di Yin. The pressure made Su Zimo feel suffocated. However, his expression was fearless as a green light suddenly flew out from his glabella. The creation Qinglian had already landed in his palm. The Qinglian swayed and the void trembled. Two cold beams of light slashed over and were blocked by the gigantic lotus leaves, dissipating instantly. The creation Qinglian dispelled Eclipse Eye with ease. Great Chaos Essence Palm, huh? Let's see if it can defend against a single attack from the creation Qinglian. Su Zimo sneered and swung the creation Qinglian towards Di Yin's incoming palm. A cold glint flashed through Di Yin's eyes. Before his palm collided with the creation Qinglian, he felt a chill run down his spine. He was confident that his body was indestructible. If he slapped down with the Great Chaos Essence Palm, even Khanate Dao being dermic weapons could be turned into scrap metal. However, in the face of this seemingly weak green lotus platform that floated over, a trace of uneasiness flashed across his heart. In a flash, Dean retracted his palm and avoided a calamity. More than an hour ago, the creation Qinglian that soared into the skies, tore through the firmaments and dispersed the dark clouds left a deep impression in his mind. In the Dao inheritance ground, he was invincible in melee combat and there was no need for him to take this risk. You have a dermic weapon. Do you think I don't? Di Yin's glabella shone and a stream of light flew out, expanding rapidly in front of him. It was an ancient bell. This ancient bell was engraved with mysterious and complicated runes that dazzled the eyes of those who looked at it. The ancient bell was surrounded by mist with an extraordinary aura. There were many types of dermic weapons in the cultivation world, and flying swords were the most common. Among the many dermic weapons, cultivators who used rare dermic weapons such as cauldrons, bells, pagodas and furnaces were generally strong and not to be trifled with. Brother Su, watch out. That's the Chaos Essence Bell, a Khanate dermic weapon that's made from imitating an emperor weapon. It's terrifying. Lin Xuanji, who was watching from afar, reminded loudly. Although Di Yin had chased after him for 20 days, as a disciple of Enigma Palace, it was not appropriate for him to help in this battle. Go! Di Yin summoned the Chaos Essence Bell and collided with the creation Qinglian. Clang! The green lotus platform collided against the Chaos Essence Bell and let out a crisp sound. It was as though a monk was striking a bell in a temple, and the sound of the bell echoed endlessly. Su Zimo shuddered and retreated half a step. He did not gain any advantage against the Chaos Essence Bell when the creation Qinglian collided with it. The Chaos Essence Bell was definitely not a Khanate Dao being dermic weapon. There was a high chance that it was at the level of a Khanate Dao Lord dermic weapon. Di Yin's talent was shocking and his cultivation was at late-stage void reversion realm. His essence spirit was comparable to the Dharma Daojun, and there was definitely a high chance that he could refine his Destiny Dermic weapon into a Tao Lord Dermic weapon. The truly terrifying thing about the Chaos Essence Bell was not its indestructibility and its ability to defend against the Creation Qinglian's attack. Instead, it was the sound of the bell when the two collided. The sound of the bell did not affect Diyin at all. However, it could shake Su Zimo's body and organs. If it was any other cultivator, their bodies would have been injured by the sound of the bell and their eardrums would have been pierced. Su Zimo cultivated the mystic classic of the 12 demon kings of the great wilderness, and his physique was strong. Even if he could not use his bloodline, a single sound of the bell would not be able to hurt him. However, if he were to clash continuously, the sound of the bell would accumulate in his body and the damage would stack. The impact could not be ignored. "How is it, Araki Takashi? Are you feeling good?" Diyin wielded the Chaos Essence Bell and was in high spirits, returning to his previously confident and invincible state. Chapter 1037. It's just a broken bell. Su Zimo smiled indifferently. "Today, I'm here to send you off." He touched his bag of holding and took out the Heaven Splitter. Wielding the Creation Qinglian in his left hand and Heaven Splitter in his right, Su Zimo strode towards Diyin with a murderous aura. Swoosh! The Qinglian swayed and shone with a resplendent glow, striking towards Diyin once more. Diyin smirked and stood firm like a mountain. He held the Chaos Essence Bell in his left hand and injected dermic powers, causing the mist around the Chaos Essence Bell to intensify. Clang! The Creation Qinglian collided with the Chaos Essence Bell and let out a bell sound once more. However, immediately after, a ghostly wail sounded from the battlefield and suppressed the sound of the bell. Su Zimo swung Heaven Splitter in reverse and slashed out layers of saber shadows, releasing the ghostly wail saber intent, purgatory saber intent, and even countercurrent saber intent. The fusion of multiple intents. A gigantic purgatory appeared on the battlefield with a torrential blood river and fiend shadows that let out shuddering cries. Unknowingly, an ancient stone truncheon appeared in Diyin's palm. It was stained with blood and had a menacing, malevolent aura. "Break!" Diyin roared and swung the stone truncheon. As the wind howled, a series of sorrowful wails could be heard that shook the world. While others did not feel anything when they heard that sound, Su Zimo's heart skipped a beat. His bloodline contained the blood of dragons. He actually resonated with that sorrowful wail in his heart as well. That was the sorrowful wail of dragons. Bang! 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 Diyin's blood chi burst forth, and he swung the stone truncheon, smashing the purgatory that had just been formed into pieces with ease. Sparks flew when the stone truncheon collided with Heaven Splitter. Su Zimo shuddered. Crack! 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 A series of clear cracks appeared on Heaven Splitter. The Khanate Tao Being dermic weapon that was created by extreme fire was shattered by Diyin's stone truncheon in a single head-on collision, and its light dimmed. "It's the dragon battling truncheon," Lin Xuanji exclaimed with a grim expression. Diyin nodded. As expected of a disciple of Enigma Palace who has entered the world. "You have a good eye. Be careful, Brother Su. This dragon battling mace is a weapon from the primordial age. Although it doesn't have a grade, it's indestructible and has once injured a divine dragon." Lin Xuanji reminded hurriedly, "The bloodstains on it are the blood of the divine dragon." Su Zimo recalled the stone hammer used by Yi Tiancheng at the Thousand Crane Tea Party. It seemed to be made of similar materials to the dragon battling truncheon. Lin Xuanji felt a lingering fear in his heart. Fortunately, he did not fight Diyin head-on. Otherwise, if these weapons were brought out, it would only take a moment for him to die. "Araki Takashi, even the magical artifacts that you rely on the most can't threaten me. What other tricks do you have?" Diyin's expression was cold and his aura was torrential. Holding the Chaos Essence Bell in his left hand and the dragon battling truncheon in his right, he charged towards Su Zimo. Boom! With a flip of his palm, Su Zimo brought out the Mystic Magnet Mountain and placed it beside the two of them. However, Diyin's speed did not decrease at all. "Foo-foo." Diyin sneered. "The Mystic Magnet Mountain is useless against the Chaos Essence Bell and Dragon Battling Truncheon." The reason why I chose these dermic weapons after advancing to the nascent soul realm was to defeat you. Many cultivators felt a chill run down their spines when they heard that. How much resentment and scheming did one have to be to choose a dermic weapon to deal with Diin after advancing to the nascent soul realm? Suddenly, everyone realized that Su Zimo was right about something. He had already become Di Yin's mental demon. This battle was Di Yin's final chance. Su Zimo did not panic when he saw Diin cross the Mystic Magnet Mountain with ease. Since the Mystic Magnet Mountain was useless, he would fight. Against Diin, Su Zimo waved the creation Qinglian with his left hand and charged forward with his right fist. Clang! The Qinglian and Chaos Essence Bell collided. Swoosh! An evil wind blew. The dragon battling truncheon transformed into a streak of light and smashed down viciously towards Su Zimo's head. Su Zimo gripped his right fist with a cold gaze and gritted his teeth to punch over. Bang! The dragon battling truncheon collided with Su Zimo's right fist and was defeated. There was a flash of blood. Su Zimo's right fist was smashed into a bloody mess by the dragon battling truncheon. However, the dragon battling truncheon that could shatter Heaven Splitter did not manage to shatter Su Zimo's right hand that possessed the Divine Phoenix Bone. Divine Phoenix Bone? Diin smiled sinisterly. Let's see how long you can last. The two of them collided once more. Both of them wielded terrifying dermic weapons. There was no longer much technique involved in melee combat. It was a clash of strength and stamina. Each collision was earth-shattering. Wherever the two of them passed, countless dilapidated walls would be trampled into ashes. Clang, clang, clang. The Chaos Essence Bell rang continuously. Each time it rang, Su Zimo's body would tremble. Bang, bang, bang. The dragon battling truncheon and Su Zimo's right hand collided repeatedly as well. The flesh on Su Zimo's right hand was almost completely destroyed by the dragon battling truncheon. All that was left was a scarlet bone that clashed against the dragon battling truncheon. This sort of head-on clash was the most draining. Su Zimo's right hand was not the only one in a tragic state. Blood began to flow from the corners of his mouth as well. His body was suffocated by the constant reverberations of the Chaos Essence Bell. His flesh exploded and he spat out mouthfuls of blood, dyeing his green robes red. It was as though victory was right in front of him and his expression turned increasingly excited. Each time he attacked, he used his full strength. Su Zimo retreated continuously, his body stained with blood and he looked extremely miserable. However, his eyes were unusually calm without any hint of panic. Although his body looked battered, in reality, he was not severely injured. Furthermore, against the reverberations of the Chaos Essence Bell, many of the afterglow powers left behind by ancient mighty figures hidden in Su Zimo's body were revealed. Those afterglows were tiny specks of light that helped Su Zimo reconstruct his body back then and possessed boundless dermic powers. Right now, the remnant afterglow in his body was released and began to repair Su Zimo's body without any control. On the surface, Su Zimo's body was stained with blood. However, at that moment, the injuries on his body were healing at a visible speed and his stamina was recovering rapidly as well. His condition was rising continuously. Both parties did not stop and fought head-on for an entire hour. Even Diin felt a sense of exhaustion. That was way too draining. The sound of blood chi surging in his body was no longer as loud as before. What shocked Diin was that even though he was exhausted, Su Zimo seemed to be oblivious to it and seemed to be getting braver the more he fought. It was another series of intense battles. An hour later, Su Zimo was no longer retreating. After another hour, Diin began to retreat. His dragon battling truncheon could not shatter the Divine Phoenix Bone. It was even more impossible for the Chaos Essence Bell to suppress the creation Qinglian. Gradually, he felt his stamina deplete under such intense consumption. Why is Su Zimo's stamina not exhausted? Diin was enraged. Each time the creation Qinglian struck the Chaos Essence Bell, he would feel his arm tremble. Under this kind of shock, the teeth in his mouth were a little loose, and a salty taste of blood appeared in his mouth. Unknowingly, the situation had reversed. Chapter 1038. This was a clash of pure strength. Su Zimo wielded the creation Qinglian in his left hand. Each time he waved it, a resplendent light would spread and the lotus platform would fall with a force that was even more ferocious than a meteor. Although he did not have a weapon in his right hand, he was not disadvantaged against Di Yin's dragon battling truncheon with the divine phoenix bone. This battle triggered the afterglow of the ancient mighty figure hidden in his body at the end of the three tribulations domain and provided him with a tremendous amount of energy. Su Zimo fought with increasing ferocity. However, Di Yin had already begun to retreat. Di Yin realized that if they continued fighting like this, he might be exhausted to death. He possessed the body-tempering legacy of Chaos Essence Sect and the Human Emperor, and his physique was frighteningly strong with endless stamina. Even the successors of the top body-tempering sects of the Immortal, Buddhist, and Fiend sects were not his match. Or rather, he would not be afraid even if someone from the primordial 9 races appeared. However, he suffered repeatedly in the hands of Su Zimo. The body tempered by the mystic classic of the 12 demon kings of the great wilderness was way too terrifying. Even if he could not channel his blood qi, the foundation of his body was still present. Given Di Yin's strength, it was impossible for him to truly destroy and severely injure this physical body. All of a sudden, Di Yin's glabella shone and a terrifying spirit consciousness surged out, forming a spirit consciousness weapon that resembled a saber or sword in midair. The weapon was extremely wide and had a side edge that resembled a saber. However, the tip of the saber was split on both sides like a sword. The spirit consciousness weapon had the sharpness of a sword and the ferocity of a saber. The two auras fused together perfectly. Its Chaos Essence Sect's top essence spirit secret skill, Limitless Saber. Di Yin's spirit consciousness is way too terrifying. That strength is already comparable to the Dharma Dao Jun. If the Dharma Dao Jun was here, he would probably be killed with a single slash from that limitless saber. A series of exclamations sounded from the crowd. The Great Chaos Essence Palm and Limitless Saber were the two most famous secret skills of Chaos Essence Sect. Slay. Di Yin controlled Chaos Essence Sect and released his Essence Spirit secret skill after defending against the Creation Qinglian's attack. The Limitless Saber tore through the air, bringing with it a destructive aura. Su Zimo's expression was grave. The might of that Essence Spirit secret skill was unprecedented. If the Mingwang prayer beads were in good condition and not missing the remaining 2 Buddha beads, they might have been able to withstand the attack. But now, the Mingwang prayer beads were, after all, incomplete magical instruments. Su Zimo could feel that even if he used all his strength, the light shield of the Mingwang prayer beads would not be able to withstand the sharpness of the Wuji saber. Up till now, he only knew a single essence spirit secret skill, the Rulai Dermic Seal. Above the creation Qinglian, although his primordial spirit had almost recovered, he was still unable to release the Tathagata Dharma Mudra. Just now, when he fought against the 4 titular disciples, his essence spirit was nearly sucked dry and he fainted on the spot. If he were to release the Rulai Dermic Seal now, he would probably be exhausted to death by the Rulai Dermic Seal before it collided with the Limitless Saber. Dean said with a murderous aura, "Araki Takashi, this battle can end now." "I don't think so." Su Zimo's heart skipped a beat. A series of resplendent lights shot out from the green lotus platform. It was the 54 Qinglian seeds. After colliding with the essence spirit secret skills of the 4 titular disciples, the resplendent lights of the Qinglian seeds dimmed and their sharpness was gone. However, after returning to the lotus platform and being nourished for a period of time, every single Qinglian seed had recovered to their original state and shone with a resplendent glow. 54 green lotus seeds rapidly condensed. Under the watchful eyes of the crowd, the green lotus seeds disappeared and transformed into a green longsword. Lotus flowers were carved on the blade of the sword. It was a work of the gods, a work of the heavens. Light circulated on the green sword and a resplendent glow filled the air. Lotus flowers seemed to possess life as they bloomed silently with sword qi. Buzz. A sword hum sounded. The Qinglian sword stabbed towards the incoming limitless saber. The saber and sword collided silently. However, in the center of the two sabers and swords, countless storms were formed. Saber chi filled the air and sword chi splattered everywhere, spreading wildly in all directions. A few cultivators were too close and could not dodge in time, so they were affected by the remnant spirit consciousness. Their gazes were blank and their expressions froze. They did not move at all and their life force dissipated rapidly as they collapsed stiffly. There were no injuries on the cultivators. However, their essence spirits were wiped out by the remnant force of the collision between the limitless saber and Qinglian sword. Pissed, the crowd sucked in a cold breath. Everyone dispersed and retreated, afraid that they would be implicated. Void reversions that could enter the Tao inheritance ground definitely had conjoint body mighty figures backing them. How many of them were mediocre? However, those void reversions could not even withstand the remnant spirit consciousness of Di-In and Su Zimo's essence spirits. Who could imagine the power of those two essence spirits' secret skills? The Qinglian sword was also a mysterious technique that was created after the creation Qinglian reached grade 6. Every single Qinglian seed emitted a resplendent glow with a sharpness that could sever one's essence spirit and defend against spirit consciousness attacks. If all the Qinglian seeds were condensed, the Qinglian sword would be formed. It was a killing technique that targeted the essence spirit and was terrifying. Even an ordinary Dharma Daojun could have his essence spirit severed by the Qinglian sword. The two essence spirits' secret skills collided in midair and devoured each other. Neither of them had the upper hand. The limitless saber dissipated. As for the Qinglian sword, it vanished as well, turning into 54 dim Qinglian seeds that returned to the lotus platform to be nourished slowly. At that moment, torrential waves surged in Dian's heart. The Tao limitless saber was his strongest trump card. With that essence spirit secret skill, he had even killed the Dharma Daojun directly. Even if the Dharma Daojun could withstand it, his essence spirit would definitely be severely injured and would not be able to defend against his subsequent attacks. He had not expected that Su Zimo would be able to receive the attack of the Tao limitless saber unscathed. It's the creation Qinglian seed again. Di-Yin's eyes burned with rage. The creation Qinglian seed was the reward for being the number one of the phenomenon ranking 100 years ago. That treasure should have belonged to him to begin with. It was all because of this person who snatched away everything that belonged to him. Freeze. Suddenly, Yin tossed the chaos essence bell in his hands into the air and a divine light burst forth from his glabella into the chaos essence bell. The bell rang. Clang. The entire void trembled. Immediately after, the chaos essence bell emitted an ancient aura and scattered mists that enveloped Su Zimo like a waterfall. Humph! Su Zimo sneered and swayed the creation Qinglian seed in his hands. The creation Qinglian rose against the momentum and extended its lotus leaves, blocking the descending mists. The chaos essence bell could not suppress the creation Qinglian seed at all. Go! Di-In tossed the dragon battling truncheon in his hands as well. The dragon battling truncheon transformed into a streak of light and struck the jade-green lotus stem viciously. The Qinglian seed swayed and jolted gently, repelling the dragon battling truncheon. Immediately after, the lotus leaves extended and swept the dragon battling truncheon in. The chaos essence bell and the creation Qinglian seed were only in a stalemate against the dragon battling truncheon. Within a short period of time, the creation Qinglian seed could not break free from the chaos essence bell's envelopment. Chapter 1039. In midair, the primordial chaos sect trembled slightly above the green lotus of creation. Di-In knew that even if he abandoned the two connate dermic weapons, it would be impossible for him to suppress the creation Qinglian. However, as long as the three dermic weapons were in a stalemate for a while, it would be enough for him. Di-In believed that without the protection of the creation Qinglian, Su Zimo would not be able to withstand his attacks or his killing techniques. Di-Yin's figure flashed and he arrived before Su Zimo in the blink of an eye. He crossed the dozens of feet in an instant at a frightening speed. Di-Yin's bloodlines surged like a tsunami as he emitted a terrifying aura. He reached out and slapped down on Su Zimo's head. His blood chi surged and his dermic powers surged. A power as vast as the sea came crashing down like a gigantic millstone. It was as if it could destroy, suppress, and crush all living things. Great Chaos Essence Palm. The reason why this palm technique could become the strongest secret skill of Chaos Essence sect was because the Great Chaos Essence Palm fused a cultivator's body, blood chi, and even dermic powers together perfectly. What burst forth from that palm was not only the power of one's physique and bloodline, but also dermic powers. The combination of the three powers caused the killing power of the Great Chaos Essence Palm to reach its limits. That was the reason why Dean was able to shatter Su Zimo's defensive inner armor with a single palm strike and even severely injure him. Normally speaking, only conjoint body mighty figures had such capabilities. Every single move they made was filled with the power of heaven and earth. Dean's movement technique was way too fast. He did not give Su Zimo a chance to dodge at all. The moment he attacked, he sealed off all of Su Zimo's escape routes. Su Zimo opened his mouth slightly and uttered a Sanskrit word. Pa. Su Zimo pressed his palms together and touched his index fingers. The other four fingers intersected and conjured a mysterious dermic seal. Immovable foundation seal. It was the only defensive dermic seal among the damning dermic seals. In an instant, Su Zimo's feet seemed to have grown roots. It was like an ancient tree, with countless thick and huge roots reaching deep into the ground, spreading continuously and firmly grasping the ground. Boom! The great primordial chaos palm and motionless fundamental seal collided. Energy shot out in all directions and magic power scattered about. The gigantic millstone in front of Dean continued to spin and crush. It continued to exert its strength and press down on Su Zimo. Kakaka. Su Zimo's body shook violently, and the roots of magic power beneath his feet broke apart one after another. Even the immovable fundamental seal could not withstand the power of the Great Chaos Origin Palm. Su Zimo retreated. The divine phoenix bone was indestructible and could withstand the sharpness or attacks of connate dermic weapons. However, its true strength was difficult to activate and it posed no threat to Dean. Yin's judgment of the situation was extremely accurate. Without being able to use Qinglian's creation and blood chi, Su Zimo felt as if he had lost both of his arms. It was very difficult for him to compete with him. Boom! Dean was unforgiving after gaining the upper hand. He strode forward and slapped down once more, causing a gigantic millstone to appear with an ancient aura. Mysterious marks appeared on the millstone one after another, glowing faintly like words. Su Zimo clasped two fingers and slashed gently at the incoming gigantic millstone. A bedazzling sword chi tore through the air. Heaven-slaying sword art. The white sword chi collided with the gigantic millstone. The millstone that was initially spinning slowly suddenly paused and a clear sword scar appeared in the middle. Immediately after, the gigantic millstone shattered into two. The Great Chaos Origin Palm was destroyed by the heaven-slaying sword art. However, the sword chi released by the heaven-slaying sword art had already dissipated into the void. Su Zimo's heart skipped a beat. Ever since he cultivated the heaven-slaying sword art, it had never failed and there was nothing it could not destroy. After he advanced to the void reversion realm, the power of this sword art increased. To think that it would only be on par with the Great Chaos Origin Palm. Of course, that was not because the heaven-slaying sword art was not strong enough. It had been less than half a year since Su Zimo obtained the heaven-slaying sword art and he had only cultivated and comprehended it for 3 months. To put it simply, that sword chi was only the tip of the iceberg for him. Not bad, Dean nodded and attacked again. His eyes were cold as he shouted, again. Boom. The Great Chaos Origin Palm appeared once more and suppressed down. That was the terror of that secret skill. Given his blood chi, physique, and dermic powers, he could release them almost limitlessly until his opponent was ground to death. There was only one Su Zimo in the world who could last this long. As for the heaven-slaying sword art, Su Zimo had to recover for a long time after releasing a single sword chi. The Fiend Suppression Seal, Demon Subduing Seal and Immortal Trap Seal were released at the same time. 3 golden palms descended, wanting to block the Great Chaos Origin Palm. Boom! The gigantic millstone in midair collided with the 3 golden palms and ground against them continuously. The millstone dissipated and the 3 golden palms vanished as well. The 3 dermic seals coupled with the daming mantra merely managed to defend against the great chaos origin palm. It did not mean that the daming dermic seal was inferior to the great chaos origin palm. There were a total of 6 complete daming dermic seals and they complemented the Mingwang prayer beads. As for the 2 missing daming dermic seals, they were imprinted on the 2 Buddha beads. Legend has it that the power of the 2 daming dermic seals was the most terrifying. Among the 6 dermic seals, they were the most ferocious and incomparably ferocious. Right now, it was true that the first 4 daming dermic seals could not defend against the suppression of the great chaos origin palm. Before Su Zimo could catch his breath, Di Yin's other hand conjured a gigantic millstone that crushed down. Di Yin's attacks were like a torrential downpour, not giving Su Zimo any chance to catch his breath. Su Zimo did not have time to conjure dermic arts and could only raise his arms to defend. Bang! The collision of flesh and bones let out a series of cringe-inducing sounds. Frick, frick, frick. Su Zimo's skeleton seemed like it was about to fall apart against the gigantic millstone as he staggered in retreat. The clothes on his arms were torn apart. The flesh on his arms had already been ground to dust by the great chaos origin palm, revealing white bones in a shocking manner. An intense pain surged through him like a tidal wave. Su Zimo gasped slightly and grit his teeth. He glared at Di Yin with a calm expression and his eyes were frighteningly bright. The afterglow of an ancient mighty figure was not endless. At that moment, it was exhausted as well. In reality, no matter how strong their stamina was, they had already reached their limits after the battle up to this point. Releasing the great chaos origin palm consecutively took a huge toll on Di Yin as well. It was also a huge burden on his body. At that moment, his body was steaming with heat and he was drenched in sweat from the consecutive bursts of power. Even his face looked pale. However, in comparison, Su Zimo was clearly in a worse state. That calmed Di Yin down and his aura rose continuously. He was prepared to kill Su Zimo in a single go. Araki Takashi, you've used up all your trump cards. Bow down. Di Yin had already gained the complete upper hand and closed in step by step. Channeling his blood chi and dermic powers once more, he released the great chaos origin palm and suppressed down. Boom! The gigantic millstone appeared once more and spun slowly. The void beneath it distorted and shattered bit by bit. Chapter 1040. Initially, Su Zimo planned to enter a stalemate with Di Yin and exhaust him. Once creation Qinglian broke free from the suppression of the Chaos Essence Bell and Dragon battling Truncheon, he would be able to regain the upper hand with her. However, the current situation was extremely dangerous. Di Yin would not give him the chance at all. Su Zimo's gaze was cold. However, there seemed to be 2 balls of flames burning in his eyes. Swoosh! Su Zimo changed hand seals repeatedly and 3 balls of flames appeared beside him. One was scarlet, one was golden and one was black. Immortal Dao Fire, Buddhist Dao Fire and Fiend Dao Fire. After inheriting half-martial ancestor Imperial Sky's Fiend cultivation technique, apart from many Fiend cultivation techniques, Su Zimo even deduced a black Fiend Dao Fire. The Samadhi Dao Fire was the strongest dermic art in the Scarlet Flame Heart Sutra. After Su Zimo redefined it, the Samadhi Dao Fire underwent a transformation and its might was even more terrifying and shocking. Back at the Thousand Crane Tea Party, the void reversion of Hellfire Hull was burned to ashes by Su Zimo's Dvyadi Dao Fire. At that time, Su Zimo was only at the nascent soul realm and there were only 2 balls of flames for that dermic art. Now that Su Zimo was at the void reversion realm, the flames around him had already evolved into 3 balls. The true Samadhi Dao Fire. Not bad. Although Di Yin did not recognize the origin of the Samadhi Dao Fire, he had a powerful cultivation and sharp eyes. Before long, he sensed that the 3 balls of flames were extraordinary. Indeed, your flame dermic art can defend against my great chaos essence palm, Di Yin smirked coldly. However, it's only able to defend against it for a moment. You can't release this dermic art continuously, but my great chaos essence palm can. Diin was not the only one, even Su Zimo had the same judgment. Although his Samadhi Dao fire had already been reborn, his cultivation was only at early-stage void reversion. With that dermic art alone, perhaps, he could only fight to a draw against the great chaos essence palm that fused his body, blood chi and dermic powers. If he wanted to truly threaten Diin, he had to raise the power of that dermic art by another level. Let's talk about it after you can block this Samadhi Dao fire. Su Zimo said coldly as he pointed forward. The 3 balls of flames that were originally revolving around him suddenly floated towards Diin. Before they could even get close, the 3 balls of flames collided with one another. Their might soared, and the entire void was already distorted and blurred from the heat. Even the cultivators watching from afar could feel a heat wave surging towards them, let alone Diin who was opposite them. What a terrifying spell! Destroy! Diin's gaze was like a torch, and he was oblivious to it. He turned the great chaos essence palm and suppressed the Samadhi Dao fire. Just as the great chaos essence palm and the Samadhi Dao fire were about to collide, Su Zimo's glabella flickered and a red light burst forth, emitting a scorching aura. Primordial spirit flame. The 4th flame arrived instantly and injected into the Samadhi Dao fire. The Samadhi Dao fire instantly evolved into the Kacharati Dao fire. According to Su Zimo's cultivation, the power of this dermic art would multiply with every additional Samadhi Dao fire. Now that the Samadhi Dao fire had evolved into the Kacharati Dao fire, its power had increased exponentially and its nature had changed completely. Lin Xuanji was originally sitting on the broken wall at the side to watch the battle. The aftershock of the collision between Su Zimo and Diin was extremely threatening to other cultivators. However, it was nothing to him. The reason why he did not go too far was because he was worried about Su Zimo. He pondered that if Su Zimo was defeated in this battle, there was no way he could sit back and do nothing. At most, he would save Su Zimo and continue escaping. However, the moment the Kacharati Dao fire was formed, the initially nonchalant Lin Xuanji was shocked. Cha! Lin Xuanji's expression changed starkly as he jumped up from the spot and turned to flee without hesitation. His movement technique had never been slow. Otherwise, he wouldn't have been able to escape for 20 days without losing a single strand of hair under Diyin's pursuit. But even so, by the time he reached the crowd of onlookers, the clothes on his body had already been burned full of holes. His hair and brows were curled from the heat and his body was emitting green smoke. If that was the case at the periphery of the battlefield, one could imagine how terrifying the power of the Kacharati Dao fire in the center of the battlefield was. Lin Xuanji turned around with a shocked expression. Instantly, the dilapidated walls within 1,000 feet radius of Su Zimo and Diin were burned to ashes and turned into nothingness. Swoosh! Against the great chaos essence palm, a 4-colored flame burst forth. Instantly, the gigantic millstone was burned red and turned into rumbling lava that flowed down. In the void, the flames burned brightly and engulfed Diyin's palm, arm, and even his entire body. If the Samadhi Dao fire could only match the power of the great chaos essence palm, the Kacharati Dao fire that was infused with the essence spirit fire was enough to kill Diin. Diin shrieked tragically within the flames. Araki Takeshi, I'm going to kill you. Flames raged and Diin had already turned into a gigantic fireball, waving his arms and roaring furiously. The crowd was shocked when they saw that. Changes happened instantly on the battlefield. Nobody expected Diin, who just now had the absolute advantage, to be burned by a 4-colored flame in the blink of an eye. He struggled and roared. In the crowd, everyone's faces were pale under the illumination of the fire. Everyone's eyes were filled with shock. The power of the Kacharati Dao fire could probably even burn Khanate Dao being dermic weapons into ashes. However, Diin was not burned to death even against such terrifying flames. It was clear how terrifying his body was. Diin was still struggling as he channeled his blood chi and dermic powers, wanting to suppress the Kacharati Dao fire. What kind of dermic art is that flame? Even the Dharma Dao Jun won't be able to escape death, right? Legend has it that Hakurodojin was the #1 fire wielder back then. I heard that Araki Takashi inherited his Dao technique inheritance. How terrifying. Diin is finished. If this flame doesn't stop, his essence spirit won't even have a chance to leave his body. After this battle, Araki Takashi's reputation will definitely reach its peak and he will be the #1 Dao being of Tianhuang mainland. Things will only move in the opposite direction when they reach an extreme. In my opinion, Araki Takashi won't be able to live for long. Many cultivators stood at the periphery and looked at the human-shaped fireball in the center of the battlefield from afar with conflicted expressions as they discussed fervently. Su Zimo released his essence spirit fire and his essence spirit withered instantly. The consecutive battles had already exhausted his essence spirit to its limits. If the Kachirati Dao fire could not turn the tide, he would not have any trump cards left. Looking at Diin, who was struggling not far away, Su Zimo's expression was cold and there was no pity in his eyes. He recalled Ji Qingtian, who was severely injured and hunted down by Diin for the past 100 years, and Little Fatty, who narrowly escaped death. He recalled the scene of Diin piercing Solitary Cloud's chest 20 days ago. He recalled how Solitary Cloud was still lying in his storage bag with his life hanging by a thread. The rage in Su Zimo's heart burned even more fiercely. He did not care about Diin's identity or how powerful his backing was. He was not going to give Diin any more chances today. This was the moment to kill Diin. Chapter 1041. In a flash, Su Zimo closed in on Diin rapidly. Although the Kachirati Dao fire was strong and had a high temperature that could incinerate everything, it did not harm Su Zimo at all. Now that he was close, Su Zimo could clearly see through the flames that Diin's clothes were already reduced to ashes. Under the burning of the Kachirati Dao fire, his flesh had already split open and emitted a wave of pungent burnt smell. Even so, against the suppression of his powerful blood chi and dermic powers, the Kachirati Dao fire merely burned his flesh and did not penetrate his bones and organs. What a frightening physique and bloodline. If he did not have the Kachirati Dao fire, Su Zimo would not have any chance of winning if this continued. But now, the situation was reversed. Su Zimo's gaze intensified with a murderous aura. Extending his gigantic palm, he clenched it into a fist and punched Diin's chest viciously. Roar! Even though he was engulfed in flames, Diin could still sense that someone was attacking him and he roared. His throat was already filled with smoke and dust. That roar was hoarse and ear-piercing as well. Diin swung his arm and welcomed Su Zimo's fist. His spirit consciousness could not detect anything at all and his eyes were already blinded. His counterattack was purely based on his powerful combat talent and instincts. Diin is indeed a monster incarnate of the current era. He's truly strong to be able to retaliate and not die despite being burned to such an extent. That's right. If not for Su Zimo, Diin would definitely be in existence like the ancient emperors in the future. Many cultivators were filled with emotions when they saw that. Bang! Su Zimo dodged Diin's palm and punched him in the chest. Diin was burned to such an extent, blinded and crippled. For Su Zimo, who was terrifying in melee combat, it was way too easy for him to dodge Diin's attack. This punch is for Ji Qing'an. Su Zimo's voice passed through the flames and sounded in Diin's ears with a cold, killing intent. Diin spat out a mouthful of blood. Before they could scatter into the void, they were instantly burned into nothingness by the Kachirati Dao fire. Diin's chest caved in deeply with a fist imprint. Cracks had already appeared on his sternum from this punch. This punch is for Little Fatty. Taking a step forward, Su Zimo punched out once more, imitating the punch from earlier. Bang! Another punch landed heavily on Diin's chest. It was as if he had been struck by lightning. A large part of his chest caved in. Countless ribs shattered and pierced into his internal organs. He coughed up large mouthfuls of blood and foamed at the mouth. The Kachirati Dao fire had not been able to break through his physical defenses and seep into his bones and organs. However, after 2 consecutive punches, the raging flames had already followed the wound on his chest and burned towards his internal organs. Diin staggered and his body swayed as he retreated unconsciously. Su Zimo walked towards Diin and raised his fist again. This punch is for solitary cloud. Su Zimo strode forth with the plow heaven stride and landed heavily in front of Diin. Twisting his waist, he gathered all his strength and punched Diin's already caved-in chest. Diin spat out a mouthful of blood from his chest. It was penetrated by Su Zimo's 3 punches. Right now, his outcome was no different from solitary clouds. However, his physique was strong and his life force was way too exuberant. Even though he was severely injured, he could still stand on the spot. Su Zimo glared at Diin, who was in the flames, with a cold gaze and said slowly, "I'll send you on your way with this final attack." Su Zimo extended his arm that seemed weak like the trunk of a divine elephant and swung it towards Diin's head. Su Zimo's palm landed on Diin's head and punched viciously. Crack, crack, crack. Under countless gazes, Diin's head spun a few times around his neck and was almost twisted off entirely. Right then, a beam of light surged into the skies. His essence spirit had left his body. Even under the burning of the Kacharati Dao fire, Diin still chose to leave his body with his essence spirit. His essence spirit was wrapped in a dermic robe that shone with rays of light. It was an essence spirit dermic weapon. After Diin's essence spirit broke through the flames, the dermic robe on his body could not withstand the burning of the Kacharati Dao fire and was ignited in the blink of an eye. His essence spirit dermic weapon was crippled. He tossed the dermic robe away hurriedly and his essence spirit escaped. "You're still trying to escape?" Sneering coldly, Su Zimo rose from the ground and let out a loud roar. Kill. The sound domain's secret skill, Thunderclap Kill, was released. Diin's essence spirit shuddered. Su Zimo had already caught up from behind and reached out with a gigantic palm, capturing Diin's essence spirit in his palm. Fufofu. Despite knowing that he was going to die, Diin laughed instead. "Araki Takashi, even if you kill me, you won't live for long. You've killed so many titular disciples in this Dao inheritance ground and you still want to live?" Su Zimo's expression was calm and he was unmoved as he said indifferently, "It's fine. Even if I die, I'll kill you first." Pausing for a moment, Su Zimo thought about it and said, "It'll be too easy on you if I kill you directly. I'm very curious about what opportunities you've obtained. I'll take all your opportunities." With that said, a ball of light appeared in Su Zimo's palm. The ball of light was filled with black fiend chi that locked Diin's essence spirit within like chains. "What are you doing?" Finally, Diin felt a hint of fear. "I'm searching your soul, of course," Su Zimo said coldly and channeled his soul-searching art without hesitation. Swoosh, swoosh, swoosh. Images flashed through Su Zimo's mind one after another. Diin's cultivation speed was extremely fast. Su Zimo did not pause at all for the images of chi condensation and foundation establishment. He flashed past them and looked behind. He wanted to obtain top-tier secret skills such as the Great Chaos Essence Palm and Limitless Saber. The scene changed. In a secret chamber, a middle-aged man sat cross-legged. He looked like he was only 34 years old, but his eyes were filled with the vicissitudes of time. No one knew how long he had lived. Diin knelt obediently in front of the middle-aged man. "Today, I'll impart to you the strongest secret skill of Chaos Essence Sect, the Great Chaos Essence Palm," the middle-aged man said slowly. Su Zimo's eyes lit up and he listened intently. All of a sudden, the middle-aged man who was initially sitting on the cushion looked at the void beside him with killing intent in his eyes. "Who is it? How dare you spy on my imparting of the Tao?" Boom! Su Zimo's mind shuddered and the soul-searching art stopped instantly. Instantly, he woke up and unknowingly he was drenched in sweat. Su Zimo had a grim expression and frowned, his eyes filled with bewilderment. The soul-searching art was used to search Diin's memories. In other words, those memories were things that had already happened and were fixed. However, the middle-aged man who imparted the Tao to Diin in those memories was able to awaken and discover his existence. That was way too terrifying. This method had already exceeded Su Zimo's understanding and was even stranger than the soul-searching art. This might have already reached the level of a divine power. Su Zimo took a deep breath of air and suppressed the distracting thoughts in his mind for the time being. He looked at Di Yin's essence spirit in the ball of light with a cold expression. No matter what, Dean was dead for sure. Su Zimo closed his palms. Di Yin's essence spirit was crushed. Dao being chaos essence, Di Yin, was dead. Chapter 1042. The battlefield was bleak. Di Yin's corpse lay quietly on the ruins, long devoid of life. The cultivators looked at the corpse and many of them had their mouths agape, unable to recover from their shock. Before this, who would have thought that Dao being chaos essence, Di Yin, would die here? Up till this point of his cultivation, Di Yin was only more than 200 years old. His combat achievements were dazzling and he had even obtained the inheritance of the human emperor. He was hailed as the #1 monster incarnate of Chaos Essence sect and even Tianhuang mainland. He had once obtained the #1 of the phenomenon ranking. Killing someone above his level was something that Di Yin had done countless times. Even among the titular disciples, no one was willing to go against him. However, such a monstrous genius had also perished today. In this generation, not only did Chaos Essence sect produce Di Yin, there was also Yi Tianqing. They were known as the Chaos Essence twin paragons. Almost everyone thought that with those two paragons, Chaos Essence sect would become the leader of the immortal sects before long. Initially, the Chigerman patriarch wanted to sacrifice Leng Ro to become Dao companions with Yi Tianqing precisely because he had taken a fancy to Chaos Essence sect's potential. But now, the Chaos Essence twin paragons were a thing of the past. Within a year, those two paragons died one after another. Both of them were killed by a single person. Throughout history, there had been countless paragons. However, there were only a few that could truly reach the end and stand at the peak of Tianhuang mainland. Every paragon would encounter countless dangers in their growth. If they died prematurely, they would be forgotten before long and the traces left behind would be washed away by the river of time. By the time Dao being Chaos Essence Di Yin died, a total of 8 titular disciples had already died here. The Dao inheritance ground had become the burial ground of this generation's titular disciples. In the ruins, a green-robed figure stood beside Di Yin's corpse. His figure was not considered strong and was even a little thin. His features were rather delicate as well. However, no one looked down on him. Araki Takashi. To rise up by stepping on the corpses of 8 titular disciples, there was probably no monster incarnate in history who had such methods and boldness. Araki Takashi established the Dao and imparted martial arts to all living beings. The crowd recalled the deafening words that sounded in the Dao inheritance ground previously. Perhaps, as long as this person did not die, he could really impart martial arts to all living beings and change the fate of the entire Tianhuang region. Perhaps, planet Tianhuang would once again usher in a golden era that was not inferior to the ancient era. The thought crossed the minds of many cultivators. "How are you? Are you okay?" Lin Xuanji ran over. When he saw Su Zimo standing there silently, he reached out and waved his palm in front of the latter's face. Su Zimo shook his head. The soul-searching technique was interrupted and terminated. He also failed to obtain the Great Chaos Palm and other secret techniques. Of course, this didn't matter. However, when he recalled the terrifying gaze of the middle-aged man during the soul-searching process, his heart began to throb with fear. He couldn't explain it clearly. It was like a sudden impulse. He had a feeling that a great disaster was about to befall him. Taking a deep breath of air, Su Zimo suppressed that feeling for the time being and retracted the creation Qinglian. Pausing for a moment, he pondered for a moment. As though he had thought of something, he took out the creation Qinglian from his consciousness and held it in his palm. Now that Di Yin was dead, the 2 connate dermic weapons, the Chaos Essence Bell and Dragon Battling Truncheon, became ownerless items. Su Zimo put away the 2 connate dermic weapons and Di Yin's storage bag. "You've really struck it rich this time round." Lin Xuanji secretly gave him a thumbs up. "Not only did you survive the calamity, you even obtained so many treasures. Notwithstanding the storage bags of the titular disciples, their destiny dermic weapons alone were extraordinary. Brother Lin, I can't thank you enough with words. I'll definitely remember your kindness." Su Zimo cupped his fists and said solemnly. Lin Xuanji waved it off and chuckled. What kind of relationship do we have? We were people who cleared the dragon pool together back then. The two of them exchanged glances and smiled. Only the two of them understood that sentence. Back then, in order to avoid the pursuit of the palace lord of Blood Crow Palace, Su Zimo accidentally barged into the Dragon Bone Valley by chance and got to know Lin Xuanji. Brother Su, is there something on your mind? Lin Xuanji was meticulous and could not help but ask when he saw the worry on Su Zimo's face. Su Zimo sighed gently. I have to meet someone? Lin Xuanji asked. Su Zimo replied, the pure maiden of the fiend sections. The pure maiden of the fiend sex was Demoness Ji. It's her? Lin Xuanji raised his brow and revealed a look of relief. She sacrificed herself as a tripod. You should go and take a look at her. You know about tripods? Su Zimo was slightly surprised. I know a little, Lin Xuanji said. Normal tripods are usually used by cultivators of the unorthodox path who use young girls as tripods to absorb yin energy for cultivation. However, the tripods of the fiend sex pure maiden sect are completely different. According to what I know, among the 7 fiend sects, Cloud Rain sect pursues the Tao of indulgence. There's no etiquette between men and women, and they return to nature with yin and yang intertwining. There's only one rule, no emotions. However, Pure Maiden sect is the exact opposite and pursues the Tao of eliminating desires. Every single generation of Pure Maiden can choose a man to be their tripod. Although they can fall in love with the man, they must not have any desires. With the help of tripods, the Pure Maiden of the fiend sex sharpens her Tao heart continuously to increase her cultivation. The Pure Maiden of the fiend sex can harm anyone in the world, but she cannot harm her own tripod. Furthermore, once she has any desires for the tripod, her powers will dissipate. If we use the sacrificial method, Su Nu's power will be transferred to the human cauldron. After saying that, Lin Xuanji lamented, the pure maiden of this generation of the fiend sex is probably destroyed. The price is way too great. In the battle 20 days ago, Demoness Ji sacrificed herself and Su Zimo's body recovered. His dermic powers surged and he was able to escape the encirclement of the 5 titular disciples. As for herself, her Tao was destroyed and she was reduced to a mortal because of that. Even though her Tao heart was recognized by a mighty figure of pure maiden sect, it was useless. Su Zimo's eyes were filled with guilt and self-blame. Initially, he knew nothing about all of this. It was only through the inheritance of half-martial ancestor Imperial Sky that he understood the meaning of pure maiden sex tripod. Unfortunately, even if he knew, it was already too late. To think that the stubbornness of the fiend sex would reach such an extent. Although it was easy to say that one had no desires, it was extremely difficult. The deeper one's emotions were, the harder it was to restrain their desires. That went against the laws of nature. No matter what, I have to find her. Su Zimo said, this is the Tao inheritance ground and cultivators are everywhere. She'll definitely be in danger after losing her powers. Let's go. I'll accompany you to take a look. Lin Xuanji patted Su Zimo on the shoulder and consoled. Don't worry, as long as she's still in the inheritance of the Demoness Stone statue, nothing will happen to her. The two of them did not say much and disappeared in a flash. Chapter 1043. The Tao inheritance ground was not considered big. Su Zimo treated his wounds simply and sped along with Lin Xuanji, arriving at the location of the Demoness Stone statue before long. The moment he arrived, Su Zimo's expression changed. The Demoness Stone statue that was initially erected here had already collapsed and its fragments were scattered all over the ground. Demoness Ji had already disappeared. He was a step too late. Su Zimo's expression was terrible. The inheritance stone statues left behind by conjoint body mighty figures contained the power of the mighty figure and were indestructible. It was impossible for anyone to shake them during the inheritance process. The most likely possibility was that someone shattered the Demoness Stone statue after the inheritance and stole Demoness Ji away. Don't worry, Lin Xuanji scanned the surroundings and said in a deep voice, there are no signs of fighting or bloodstains at the scene. Dao being pure maiden should be fine. Let's search the vicinity first. The two of them split up to search. Su Zimo's essence spirit was greatly exhausted from the consecutive battles. However, he still tried his best to spread his spirit consciousness and search carefully. Before long, Su Zimo stopped in his tracks and shuddered. Not far ahead, a young girl in pink was walking towards him. She had a graceful figure and light footsteps. Her bright eyes were smiling and she exuded an enchanting aura that caused one's heart to ripple. Who else could that girl be other than Demoness G? When he saw that Demoness G was fine, Su Zimo heaved a sigh of relief and could not help but laugh. Looking at Su Zimo, who was not far away, Demoness G smiled happily as well with a tender look in her eyes. Su Zimo walked forward. When he was close, he realized that Demoness G's cultivation had not decreased at all. She was still at early-stage void reversion. How did you? Su Zimo was puzzled but did not know how to ask. Demoness G saw through Su Zimo's confusion right away and smiled. You want to ask why my cultivation is still present and why I didn't turn into a mortal because of the sacrifice? Su Zimo nodded. Originally, because of the sacrifice of the human cauldron, I lost all my power. Demoness G said, however, it was a blessing in disguise and triggered the inheritance of the pure maiden stone statue. Not only did I recover my cultivation, I even obtained the complete Pure Maiden Sutra. When he heard that, Su Zimo was finally relieved. Hey, do you know that a normal sacrifice can only inherit 70% of my cultivation even if my cultivation is dissipated? A fragrant wind blew and Demoness G suddenly closed. She leaned over and leaned against Su Zimo as she whispered, there's a dermic formulation that can inherit 100% of my cultivation. Do you know what it is? If this was in the past, Su Zimo would have pushed Demoness G away or avoided her himself. However, he did not move this time round. On the one hand, he felt she pure maiden. On the other hand, after understanding the meaning of the tripod, he knew that Demoness G was merely bluffing and would not do anything out of line. What? Su Zimo asked instinctively. Demoness G smiled charmingly and crawled to Su Zimo's ear. She exhaled and whispered, dual cultivation. Su Zimo's heart skipped a beat and he nearly lost control of his Dao heart. He exclaimed internally. Compared to 20 days ago, Demoness G's bewitchment skills were clearly even more frightening. Stop fooling around, Su Zimo laughed bitterly with a helpless expression. I'm not fooling around, Demoness G said, after obtaining the complete Pure Maiden Sutra. I found out that there's a dual cultivation dermic formulation within that allows one's cultivation to increase instead of dissipating. Pausing for a moment, Demoness G chuckled. Furthermore, it's beneficial to you as well. Swoosh. Su Zimo felt as though a ball of flames was rising within his body that he could not suppress. He retreated hurriedly and distanced himself from Demoness G. In the face of such a peerless beauty who could captivate all living things and charm the world, who would be able to resist whispering sweet nothings and seducing them, Su Zimo took a few deep breaths to compose himself. Prior to this, Demoness G had teased him in the same manner as well. However, at that time, he could vaguely sense that she was merely joking. But now, he had an illusion that Demoness G truly wanted to eat him up. There was a high chance that this dual cultivation dermic formulation was real. If his willpower wavered, he might really die together with Demoness G. Hee, look how scared you are, Demoness G chuckled. Su Zimo changed the topic hurriedly and asked, why are you here? I came out of the Demoness Stone statue after receiving the inheritance not long ago and headed to the Three Tribulations domain first. Demoness G said, I only found out that you had already fought with Dean when I arrived. By the time I arrived, you had already left. I guessed that you would come looking for me, so I returned. Guys, I really didn't want to disturb you guys. Not far away, on a green rock, Lin Xuanji stood against the wind and could not help but say, however, I've been standing here for half a day. Can the two of you take a look at me? Su Zimo blushed. He was distracted by Demoness G and truly did not notice Lin Xuanji. Demoness G pursed her lips and smiled, bowing to Lin Xuanji. Thank you for saving me, fellow Taoist Xuanji. I thank you here. Lin Xuanji waved it off and avoided Demoness Ji's gaze hurriedly, seemingly wary as well. He coughed gently and said, "It's best if you guys study what to do after leaving this place. Brother Su, you killed 8 titular disciples. Those 8 titular disciples represent the 8 super sects." Lin Xuanji said in a deep voice, "It's fine if you're in the Dao inheritance ground and conjoint body mighty figures can't attack. However, if you leave, the 8 super sects will definitely not let you off. If there's no other way, we can hide here for a while," Demoness Ji suggested. Su Zimo shook his head. He could afford to wait, but Solitary Cloud, who was in his storage bag, could not wait that long. The life preservation elixir could only keep Solitary Cloud alive for a month. Right now, 20 days had already passed. He had to return to Tianhuang mainland and think of all ways to save Solitary Cloud's life. Perhaps Elixir Yang sect would have some elixir that could revive Solitary Cloud. Seemingly able to read Su Zimo's mind, Lin Xuanji asked, "Are you still concerned about that WM?" Su Zimo remained silent. Lin Xuanji sighed. "In my opinion, there's no way to save that WRM's injuries. Even in Elixir Yang sect, there's no elixir that can revive it." "We have to try," Su Zimo murmured softly and fell into deep thought. Middle Continent, Chaos Essence Sect. Suddenly, an extremely furious roar sounded from a cave abode in the depths of the sect. Its might was wanton and its killing intent was chilling, causing the surrounding mountains and valleys to fall into dead silence. "Linseng, come over here." A cold voice sounded. Chaos Essence Sect Patriarch Linsong shuddered and hurried towards the back mountain of the sect. Chapter 1044. Arriving in front of a cave abode at the back of the mountain, Lin Song, who was at the conjoint body realm and was the master of a sect, did not dare to be disrespectful and bowed. "Elder D, weren't you in seclusion? What happened?" Boom. There was a deafening sound. The door of the cave abode was shattered by a terrifying power and countless boulders smashed onto Lin Song. However, Lin Song did not dare to dodge and continued to bow slightly. A purple-robed figure walked out slowly with a burning gaze, and a massive might exuded from his body. Even the conjoint body mighty figure Lin Song almost could not withstand it and knelt on the ground. This was the Grand Elder of Chaos Essence Sect, a half-martial ancestor expert, D Fan. "Seclusion?" D Fan's expression was dark as he said slowly, "If I continue in seclusion, Chaos Essence Sect will probably be destroyed. Let me ask you, is Diin still alive?" When he heard that, Lin Song's expression was terrified and he was drenched in sweat. "Elder Diin he?" Lin Song hesitated for a moment and gulped before saying, "He's already dead. He was killed by Su Zimo, Araki Takashi, who had just established his Dao in the Dao inheritance ground." Lin Song hurriedly recounted the news of the Dao inheritance ground. "Indeed." D Fan's gaze turned cold. Initially, he was indeed in seclusion. However, the moment Su Zimo searched Di Yin's soul, he was still alarmed. "Elder D, please calm down," Lin Song said hurriedly. "Araki Takashi is protected by 100 Refinement Sect. We've already contacted Heavenly Dipper Sect, Zephyr Thunder Palace, Malevolent Earth Sect, Formless Monastery, and other sections. We're prepared to join forces to kill 100 Refinement Sect and kill Araki Takashi. A debt of blood shall be paid in blood." "Why is it so troublesome to kill a void reversion?" D Fan said coldly. "How long will it take to join forces with the other sects? What if something happens during this period of time and that lad escapes? I want him dead right now." Di Yin's death triggered D Fan's killing intent. Lin Song smiled bitterly and said, "Elder D, this child is still in the Dao inheritance ground. That place is protected by the wills of many ancient mighty figures, and the power of conjoint body mighty figures can't penetrate it at all. We can only attack after he returns to Tianhuang mainland." "Is that so?" D Fan narrowed his eyes. Lin Song's heart trembled as he vaguely realized something. He exclaimed, "Elder D, could it be that you want to, at the same time, in 100 Refinement Sect?" "What? Diin is dead?" When the news spread, everyone in the 100 Refinement Sect was shocked. Although Su Zimo was at the Void Reversion Realm, everyone felt that it would be extremely difficult for Su Zimo to kill Diin. Perhaps victory and defeat could be determined between the two of them. However, it would be too difficult to determine life and death. Even Extreme Fire did not expect that Diin would be killed by Su Zimo in the Dao Inheritance Ground. Including Diin, 8 titular disciples had already died in Su Zimo's hands. Previously, when the 6 titular disciples died, Dao Lord White Flames, Dao Lord Scarlet Star and the others were already frowning and worried. Now that 8 titular disciples were dead, it meant that if 100 Refinement Sect dared to protect Su Zimo, they would have to bear the wrath of the 8 super sects. Dao Inheritance Ground. Su Zimo, Lin Xuanji and Demoness Ji were prepared to leave. Brother Su, why are you still holding on to the creation Qinglian for no reason? Who else would dare to provoke you in this Dao Inheritance Ground? Lin Xuanji could not help but purse his lips and ask when he saw that Su Zimo was still holding on to the Qinglian and swinging it around. Su Zimo smiled and did not explain. He kept feeling uneasy in his heart. Only by holding the green lotus of creation could he calm down. Right then he suddenly stopped in his tracks. His spirit perception warned him and an unprecedented sense of danger descended, causing his scalp to tingle and his heart to almost jump out of his chest. His previous uneasiness was merely illusory. But this time round, Su Zimo truly sensed the aura of death. It was scarier than any danger he had experienced in the past. The skies of the Dao Inheritance Ground suddenly darkened. At that moment, every cultivator in the Dao Inheritance Ground felt their hearts skip a beat. An extremely terrifying might coiled above the firmaments, as though it was searching for something. Almost in the blink of an eye, it locked onto its location. This was a power that came from outside the Dao Inheritance Ground. Demoness Ji was shocked. This is the Dao Inheritance Ground, how is this possible? Lin Xuanji's eyes widened as though he had suddenly thought of something. He could not continue as fear shone in his eyes. Without hesitation, Su Zimo pushed Demoness Ji and Lin Xuanji away. At the same time, he swung the Qinglian with his right hand and injected dermic powers while slapping his storage bag with his left hand. Swoosh! The Qinglian of creation rose from the ground and shone with a jade-green glow, heading against the firmaments. Its gigantic lotus leaves blotted out the skies and its thick stem was like a stone pillar that pierced through the world. Sniff. Right then, a crack suddenly appeared in the firmaments. Immediately after, a gigantic palm tore through the firmaments with a supreme might and crushed down fiercely, as though it wanted to destroy the world. The entire Dao Inheritance Ground trembled and swayed. The void around the gigantic palm collapsed inch by inch and cracks appeared one after another. Even this space could not withstand the impact of that power. How terrifying was that power that even the void could not withstand? There was only a single target for that gigantic palm, Su Zimo on the ground. At that moment, every cultivator in the Dao Inheritance Ground saw the gigantic palm and trembled with shocked expressions. That power was way too terrifying. Even conjoint body mighty figures like the Dharma Dao Jun would be destroyed in body and spirit by that power, let alone void reversions. No. Demoness Ji felt chills run down her spine as she looked at Su Zimo who was not far away and cried helplessly. Lin Xuanji looked at the descending palm and recalled his master's words. His master had once told him extremely sternly that Su Zimo would face a calamity upon entering the Dao Inheritance Ground this time round. At that time, he did not think much of it. He thought that Su Zimo's calamity would land on the other titular disciples or Diin and he would have survived it safely. It was only now that he realized that the palm before him was Su Zimo's calamity. The power of the conjoint body realm could not penetrate the barrier of the Dao Inheritance Ground. There was only a single possibility for that palm to be able to penetrate the Dao Inheritance Ground and suppress down. A terrifying expert that surpassed the conjoint body realm had attacked. When he realized that, a look of sorrow and mockery flashed through Lin Xuanji's eyes. The sorrow came from the fact that Su Zimo was dead for sure because of the attack of such a terrifying expert. However, what Lin Xuanji found ironic was that in order to kill Su Zimo and prevent him from growing, an expert that surpassed the conjoint body realm disregarded his dignity and killed a void reversion. Chapter 1045. If Lin Xuanji could guess it, Su Zimo could naturally deduce it as well. The fact that the barrier of the Dao inheritance ground could be broken meant that the cultivation of the attacker had already surpassed the conjoint body realm. An ancestor realm expert. Be it a patriarch or a half-martial ancestor, a power of that level was definitely not something a void reversion could defend against. It was no exaggeration to say that if this was not the Dao inheritance ground, a single glance from an ancestor realm expert would be enough to kill a void reversion. Actually, the moment he failed to search Di Yin's soul, Su Zimo felt a vague sense of uneasiness. That was the reason why he had the creation Qinglian in his hands the entire time. However, he knew that even the creation Qinglian would not be able to defend against the power of an ancestor realm expert. The Grade 6 creation Qinglian had only just entered maturity and was comparable to a Khanate Dao Lord Dermic weapon. It was far from its peak. It was as though the Khanate spirit weapon used by perfected being Jin Dan was placed in front of Su Zimo and he could crush it casually. The difference in strength was way too great. Right now, there was only a single chance to escape. The major transference talisman. Therefore, the moment Su Zimo sensed danger, he supported the creation Qinglian and took out the major transference talisman from his storage bag. Without hesitation, he tore it apart. Ever since the old monk gave him the major transference talisman, he had not used it. According to the old monk, he could teleport him to the bottom of the Dragon Burial Valley if he tore the major transference talisman. Su Zimo did not know if he could make it in time. He did not know if the power of an ancestor realm expert would interrupt the teleportation of the major transference talisman. More than that, he did not know if there would be any other changes during the process. He only knew one thing. This was his only chance at survival. The major transference talisman shattered. A strange power burst forth and space trembled violently. Immediately after, a gigantic black vortex appeared behind Su Zimo. It was deep and mysterious, as though it could devour everything. A terrifying suction force burst forth and pulled Su Zimo's body in. At the same time, Qinglian, who had risen against the momentum, collided head-on with the huge palm that was suppressing her. Boom! In an instant, it was as if the world had stopped. Even the black vortex formed by the major transference talisman had stopped spinning. Every cultivator in the Dao inheritance ground looked up at the sky with their mouths agape and their eyes filled with shock. In their line of sight, in the entire world, there was only the creation Qinglian that rose against the tide, swaying and glowing, and a huge palm. Crack, crack, crack. Then, under the gazes of countless people, the thick green lotus stem broke inch by inch under the suppression of the huge palm, and the multicolored light dissipated. Creation Qinglian seemed to let out a sorrowful cry. The huge lotus leaf was also torn apart by this terrifying power. Lotus petals drifted down one by one. It was beautiful and sorrowful. The supreme artifact that had stolen the fortune of the heavens and earth had just shown its brilliance when it was mercilessly suppressed by a giant hand and crippled. The cultivators stared at this scene in silence for a long time. Everything seemed to indicate something. The fate of the strongest monster incarnate in history seemed to be identical to that of the creation Qinglian that rose against the tide and was unwilling to submit. The creation Qinglian was already suppressed. How could this person escape? The shattered lotus stem, leaves, and bare lotus platform were all sucked into the black vortex behind Su Zimo. With the momentary obstruction of the creation Qinglian, Su Zimo had at least torn the major transference talisman and entered the dark teleportation tunnel. The crisis seemed to have passed. However, the owner of the palm did not allow it at all. Trying to escape? A cold and sinister voice sounded from the firmaments. Boom! The gigantic palm suddenly descended, as though it had broken through the restrictions of space and reached into the pitch-black vortex, grabbing towards the fleeing Su Zimo. This was the power and methods of an ancestor realm expert. Even if he released the major transference talisman first, it was impossible for him to escape from the eyes of an ancestor realm expert. Su Zimo, who was in the teleportation tunnel, did not have the time to grieve for the destruction of the creation Qinglian. The calamity had already descended once more. Everything happened too quickly. From the moment he tore the major transference talisman to him being dragged into the pursuit of the gigantic palm, everything happened in the blink of an eye. Without time to think, Su Zimo could only raise his right hand instinctively and block in front of him. Bang! The two palms collided. A terrifying force collided with the divine phoenix bone. Screech! In the teleportation tunnel, a clear and melodious phoenix cry resounded. It pierced through metal and cracked stone, and it carried with it a boundless majesty. Immediately after, Su Zimo's right hand released an extremely scorching aura, as though it could incinerate and destroy all living beings. His right hand had already vanished completely and was replaced by a gigantic and menacing claw. It was scarlet and blazed with shocking divine flames. The power of the divine phoenix bone was completely activated and revealed its true form, the divine phoenix's claw. The divine phoenix's claw descended with divine flames burning on it and the aura of a god, colliding with the gigantic palm of the ancestor realm expert. Boom! Su Zimo shuddered as though he was struck by lightning. Although the divine phoenix bone was undamaged against the power of an ancestor realm expert, it could not defend against the remnant power of the ancestor realm expert that surged into his body through the divine phoenix bone. The bones in Su Zimo's body were not divine phoenix bones after all. Just a single strand of residual energy entering his body was absolutely destructive to his physical body. Crack, 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 crack. His bones shattered into pieces the size of fingernails and none of them were intact. His flesh exploded and he was almost smashed into pieces. This powerful body that had been cultivated for more than 100 years was completely crippled against the remnant power of an ancestor realm expert. There was no longer any vitality in his body. Furthermore, this was under the premise that the divine phoenix bone blocked most of the power of the ancestor realm expert. If not for the divine phoenix bone, Su Zimo's body and spirit would have been destroyed in a single strike and his body would have been crushed into dust by the gigantic palm. This collision caused Su Zimo's figure to fall rapidly into the depths of the black vortex and disappear into the darkness. The huge palm reached in again, but it didn't catch anything. The ancestor realm expert harumphed coldly. The gigantic palm retracted from the black vortex and retreated from the Tao inheritance ground. It was only at this moment that the terrifying pressure in the void dissipated slowly. After a long silence, the entire Tao inheritance ground burst into an uproar. Heavens! Araki Takashi established his Tao and killed 8 titular disciples. To think that an ancestor realm expert would attack. I wonder if it's a Mahayana patriarch or a half-martial ancestor. It must be a half-martial ancestor. At the Mahayana patriarch realm, their horizons are broadened and they are focused on pursuing the great Tao. Why would they make a fuss over such a small matter? An ancestor realm expert killing a void reversion is truly disregarding his dignity and unscrupulous means. From today onwards, there will be no more Araki Takashi. Some people lamented, some sighed, some gloated, and some were devastated. Demoness Ji's tears gushed like a fountain as she sobbed silently. Lin Xuanji stood there in a daze, as though he could not recover from the shock of that scene. A moment later, he said, "Fellow Taoist pure maiden, Brother Su is not dead yet. There might still be a chance for a turnaround." Chapter 1046. Before long, news spread to Tianhuang mainland one after another, causing a huge uproar. An ancestor realm expert has attacked. Which sect is he from? I don't know. There's a high chance that he's from Chaos Essence sect. The creation Qinglian was shattered and Araki Takashi's body was crippled. He was teleported away by the major transference talisman and his whereabouts are unknown. No one knows if he's dead or alive. The tallest tree in the forest will be destroyed by the wind. Araki Takashi is too sharp and it's his fate to face this calamity. Ever since the catastrophe of the Great Qian Empire 10,000 years ago, there was almost no news of an ancestor realm expert attacking in the cultivation world. But this time round, Araki Takashi's Tao establishment and calamity of the title caused an ancestor realm expert to attack. This news was like a stone that caused 1,000 ripples and shocked Tianhuang mainland. Before long, the 9 immortal sects, 7 fiend sects, 6 Buddhist monasteries and other super sects knew that the person who attacked was Chaos Essence Sect's Defan, a half-martial ancestor expert. Middle Continent, Chaos Essence Sect. Defan retracted his palm slowly with a dark expression. His eyes flickered without any emotions. Elder D, is that lad dead? Chaos Essence Sect's patriarch asked cautiously. Defan said expressionlessly, no, his body and the creation Qinglian were crippled by me. However, he still managed to escape with the major transference talisman. Why does that lad have a treasure like the major transference talisman? Defan's tone was sinister. He was still infuriated that he did not manage to kill Su Zimo with his attack. The major transference talisman can teleport to a fixed location. Chaos Essence Sect's patriarch said in a deep voice, I've heard Dean mention before that the first time he met Araki Takashi was at the bottom of the Dragon Burial Valley. Dragon Burial Valley? Defan raised his brow and said slowly, I heard from the patriarch that there seems to be an old monk at the bottom of the Dragon Burial Valley. Is he not dead yet? No, but after 10,000 years, that old monk doesn't have much lifespan left. He should be dying soon. When the patriarch of the Hunyuan sect heard the words ancestor, his expression turned cold. A hint of awe flashed across his eyes as he replied in a deep voice. The old ancestor that Defan mentioned was the only Mahayana patriarch of the D clan. His seniority was even higher than Defan's. During the calamity of the Grand Qian Empire 10,000 years ago, it was precisely because of this D clan's ancestor that the ancestral rank evil dragon was annihilated. Defan and the fallen Dean were both descendants of the D clan's patriarch. However, the ancestor of the D family was not in the Hunyuan sect. Defan waved his hand and said coldly, spread the news that Araki Takashi is at the bottom of the Dragon Burial Valley. Contact Heavenly Dipper Sect, Zephyr Thunder Palace and other sects to storm the Dragon Burial Valley. The patriarch of the Hunyuan sect frowned and said hesitantly, Elder D, that old monk is still alive. After all, he was a Mahayana realm patriarch. It's all right. Defan sneered and said, how much combat power can a Mahayana patriarch who is already in his twilight years have deteriorated? He might not even be able to defend against a conjoint body mighty figure. I don't believe that an old bald monk like him who doesn't have much lifespan left will be able to defend against the attacks of the 8 super sects after Daming Monastery and Fahua Monastery are destroyed. Pausing for a moment, Defan's eyes were filled with killing intent as he said coldly, at most, I'll attack again. Middle Continent, 100 Refinement Sect. Everyone from 100 Refinement Sect was worried about how to deal with the encirclement of the 8 super sects when news of an ancestor realm expert attacking spread. Everyone was shocked. Killing intent burst forth from Shura Yen Beichen and was almost corporeal. His gaze was sinister, as though it was a mountain of corpses and a sea of blood. He had thought of all possibilities and even prepared for the worst. He wanted to flee with Su Zimo. However, he had not expected an ancestor realm expert to attack. This was akin to an adult burly man killing a baby in swaddling clothes by hook or by crook. The difference between a void reversion and an ancestor realm expert was even greater than the difference between a baby and a burly man. An ancestor realm expert is attacking a void reversion. Chaos Essence Sect is truly shameless for the sake of revenge. Elder Gu said hatefully. Elder Gu shook his head. I'm afraid it's not just for revenge. That's right. Shangguanzi said. He established his Dao heart by stepping on the corpses of 8 titular disciples. Once such a monster incarnate grows up, it will be a disaster for super sects like Chaos Essence Sect. Killing a monster incarnate is the true reason why an ancestor realm expert attacked. Hakaradojin stood silently at the side, frowning in deep thought. Extreme fire, don't worry too much. Shangguanzi said softly, according to the news that came, Zimo has already been teleported away and his fate is unknown. There's still hope. Everyone knew that that was just a consolation. Creation Qinglian's body was crippled by an ancestor realm expert one after another. Even if he survived, The monster incarnate of the past was already gone. Shangguanzi sighed softly. I wonder where that child was teleported to. I know. Right then, Extreme Fire spoke. Everyone was stunned. Shangguanzi could vaguely sense that Extreme Fire's expression seemed to be much more relaxed after hearing that Su Zimo tore the major transference talisman and escaped. Extreme Fire said, Zimo should have gone to the Dragon Burial Valley. Dragon Burial Valley? I heard that an evil dragon was buried in the Dragon Burial Valley 10,000 years ago. Patriarchs died and emperors bled. It's an ominous place. Why would Zimo be there? Everyone asked hurriedly. Before Extreme Fire could explain, a spirit crane flew in from outside. The spirit crane was filled with immortal chi and had flesh and blood. It was extremely agile and arrived before Shangguanzi. Suddenly, it transformed into a paper crane and floated into her palm. Another huge piece of news from the cultivation world. Everyone was shocked. Shangguanzi opened the spirit crane and her expression changed gradually. How is it? Worried about Su Zimo, Yan Beichen took the initiative to ask. Shangguanzi had a grim expression and said in a deep voice, Extreme Fire is right. Zimo should have been teleported to the Dragon Burial Valley. However, for some reason, this news has already spread in the cultivation world. Everyone exclaimed. All the cultivators present quickly realized what kind of consequences this news would bring if it were to spread. Shangguanzi continued, the spirit crane said that conjoint body mighty figures of the 5 immortal sects, Heavenly Dipper sect, Chaos Essence sect, Zephyr Thunder Palace, Sword sect and Glass Palace, the 2 Fiend sects, Hidden Death sect and Malevolent Earth sect, Formless Monastery of the Buddhist monasteries and the Heretical Poison sect have all appeared and are rushing to the North region's Dragon Burial Valley. Apart from the 8 super sects that everyone had expected, Sword sect was involved as well. These were the 9 super sects. Everyone's expressions were terrible. Everyone knew that there was no way Su Zimo could escape this calamity. Elder Gu sighed. For a void reversion, so many super sects have joined forces and so many conjoint body mighty figures have appeared. They're bent on killing him. Without another word, Yan Beichen turned to leave. Where are you going? Extreme Fire reached out and stopped him. To the Dragon Burial Valley. Yan Beichen's voice was cold. Extreme Fire shook his head. It's too late for you to go now. The movement techniques of conjoint body mighty figures are much faster than yours. It only takes 2 to 3 days to travel from the middle continent to the north region. Furthermore, you're injured. You'll be sending yourself to your death if you rush over. What should I do then? Just wait? Yan Beichen clenched his fists tightly. Extreme Fire had a strange expression as he murmured softly, let's wait for the news. If Zimo returns to the Dragon Burial Valley, I won't be worried anymore. Chapter 1047. Bottom of the Dragon Burial Valley, 10,000-year-old temple. In the cemetery in the backyard of the main hall, an old monk sat there. His beard and brows were white and he was emaciated. Seated on the ground, he was chanting the rebirth mantra softly towards the cemetery. In the cemetery, a red-haired burly man with disheveled hair and tattered clothes sat inside. His body was coiled with rusty chains. The scarlet-haired burly man leaned against a stone stele listlessly and was about to doze off amidst the chanting of the old monk. Old bald monk, you're nagging here every day. It's fine if you're dead, but you're annoying the living to death. The scarlet-haired burly man dozed off and mumbled. The old monk turned a deaf ear and continued chanting. All of a sudden, the scarlet-haired burly man's expression changed as though he sensed something. He stood up with a bang and the chains on his body vibrated. The scarlet-haired burly man stared at the void not far away with bright eyes. There was no hint of fatigue on his face. Suddenly, the chanting stopped. As though he sensed something, the old monk flicked his sleeves and created a gigantic crack in the void not far away, causing a pile of items to fall out. There were broken lotus stems, shattered lotus leaves and a bare lotus platform. Immediately after, a figure fell out. It was Su Zimo who tore apart the major transference talisman and escaped from the hands of the half-martial ancestor expert, D. Fan. Bang! Su Zimo's body fell heavily to the ground motionlessly. It was not that he did not want to move, but his body had already lost all vitality. Although his essence spirit was not destroyed, he could no longer control this body. The scarlet-haired burly man was shocked when he saw the mangled body. "He's so severely injured?" The scarlet-haired burly man could tell with a single glance that the body was completely crippled. His bones were shattered and his organs were smashed into mush. His flesh was lifeless without any vitality. To put it simply, even if the owner of this body was a conjoint body mighty figure, he would not be able to save it. The power of a conjoint body mighty figure could regenerate severed limbs. However, Su Zimo was a Mahayana patriarch if his body was destroyed to this extent. Every Mahayana patriarch knew a divine power, rebirth from a single drop of blood. A single drop of blood was all it took to reconstruct the body. The old monk looked at the battered body and frowned as well. Even the grade 6 fortune realm Qinglian was shattered? The red-haired man's face gradually turned ugly. To be able to shatter a grade 6 creation, Qinglian's strength was probably beyond the conjoint body realm. Could it be that an ancestor realm expert made a move? The red-haired man's eyes were filled with murderous intent as he was enraged. Although there were no hard and fast rules in the cultivation world, it was truly inexcusable for an ancestor realm expert to kill a void reversion. Motherf *Cur, he's really bullying this kid because he doesn't have a backer. The red-haired man cursed. His nose twitched as he sniffed the air. His face turned even uglier. He gnashed his teeth and said, "She's a descendant of the D family, and a descendant of his." At this moment, two beams of light flew out from the broken body. They were Su Zimo's two great primordial spirits, the red-haired Een spirit and the black-haired primordial spirit. Looking at Su Zimo's scarlet-haired Een spirit, the red-haired burly man's eyes lit up with satisfaction. However, he soon frowned. "Your essence spirit is injured as well?" A look of rage flashed through the red-haired burly man's eyes. "Master." The two essence spirits bowed to the old monk first before turning to look at the red-haired burly man with complicated expressions. If Su Zimo was not wrong, the red-headed ghost that he had mentioned was most likely the culprit behind the catastrophe back then, that evil dragon. "What are you looking at?" The red-headed ghost glared. "I'm that illumination dragon from back then, so what? You've also drunk my blood for 20 years at the bottom of this valley." When he heard the red-headed ghost say that, Su Zimo no longer had any doubts. However, he was truly in no mood to argue with the red-headed ghost. He felt a wave of sorrow as he looked at the lifeless body on the ground. It was not because he had lost his physical body. He was a void reversion and would not die even if he lost his physical body. Furthermore, if he lost his physical body, he could just create another one at most. It was also not because of how strong this body was and how many years of cultivation were destroyed. It was because he had been cultivating the mystic classic of the 12 demon kings of the great wilderness ever since he started cultivating. This body carried traces of Dayu. When his bloodline phenomenon was pushed to its limits, a blood-colored butterfly would even be created. However, all of that would no longer exist. That was the reason why he could not bear to part with it. The red-headed ghost looked at the old monk. "Old bald monk, let's follow my plan. That's the only way we can resolve his crisis." "That's the only way," the old monk sighed gently. The red-headed ghost shouted to Su Zimo, "Hey, lad, do you want this body to recover to its original state? You have a way?" Su Zimo was invigorated and his eyes lit up. The red-headed ghost laughed strangely. "Of course I have a way. If you nod your head, I'll give you a huge opportunity. It's way too easy for this body to recover. The true benefits are yet to come. Speak." Su Zimo calmed down and did not agree immediately. "From now on, this body of yours will only be managed by this essence spirit." The red-headed ghost pointed to the scarlet-haired Een spirit and said, "Your essence spirit and body can head to the Dragon Bone Valley. There's a divine spring inside that can heal your body and essence spirit injuries." The divine spring of the primordial era has the miraculous effect of reviving the dead and regrowing flesh and bones. It has long gone extinct. However, there's a spring in the Dragon Bone Valley. Su Zimo knew that the red-headed ghost would not lie to him about something as such. Since he said that the primordial divine spring had such an effect, it must be true. The red-headed ghost continued, "If your body recovers, you'll have to join the dragons and cultivate in the Dragon Bone Valley. No one will dare to bully you to this extent in the future. With the dragons of the primordial 9 races as backing, who would dare to provoke them? Not the 9 immortal sects, 7 fiend sects and 6 Buddhist monasteries." After pondering for a moment, Su Zimo asked again, "What about my black-haired essence spirit?" That was the key. If his body recovered and belonged to the scarlet-haired Een spirit alone, it would mean that his entire body, from his bloodline to his essence spirit, would be completely dragons. Su Zimo was born as a human and wanted to establish the Tao for all living beings. He did not want to be reduced to an alien race completely. However, this was indeed a massive opportunity for him. The greatest benefit was naturally that his body could recover to its original state. If he could cultivate in the Dragon Bone Valley, it might be of great help to his cultivation of the mystic classic of the 12 demon kings of the great wilderness. There was an essence spirit secret skill and a dermic art in the yang spirit section. The dermic art was barren. Su Zimo only had a rough understanding of barren and could release it simply. He did not manage to unleash its full power. Furthermore, he could not control the range of the technique perfectly. Up till now, he could not understand the profoundness of the essence spirit secret skill. If he could cultivate in the Dragon Bone Valley, it would be extremely helpful for him to control Baron and comprehend the essence spirit secret skill. After all, the Yin and Yang spirit sections of the mystic classic of the 12 demon kings of the great wilderness were adapted from the cultivation of the Dragon King of Desolate Ocean. Chapter 1048. Su Zimo asked, "What about my black-haired essence spirit?" "Up to you then." The red-headed ghost waved his hand and pouted his lips nonchalantly. "In any case, this body of the dragons will be your true body from now on. At most, you can just refine a body for your black-haired essence spirit and cultivate it as a clone." "No," the old monk shook his head and suddenly said, "the dragons can be cultivated as a clone. This black-haired essence spirit is Zimo's true body." T. The red-headed ghost was anxious. "That body is connected to the lad's bloodline, so of course it's the true body of the dragons. There's only a black-haired essence spirit here without a physical body. How can it be considered a true body?" The old monk shook his head and said resolutely, "However, he's a human after all. Therefore, the body reconstructed by the black-haired essence spirit is his true body. As for the dragons, they can only be considered as clones." The two of them started arguing over this matter. The old monk refused to back down as well. Both of them were clear about Su Zimo's potential. If he was allowed to grow, he would definitely become an extremely terrifying existence that could change the situation of Tianhuang mainland. The reason why the red-headed ghost wanted the scarlet-haired Een spirit to be his true body was naturally for the sake of the dragons. At the same time, the old monk's original intention was for the human race to have hope in the future. "Master, red-headed ghost, stop arguing." Su Zimo's gaze was resolute, as though he had made a decision. He said slowly, "Be it the scarlet-haired Een spirit or the body of the black-haired essence spirit, they're not clones. They're both my true bodies, Su Zimo." The two of them were stunned for a moment before coming to a realization. If an ordinary cultivator were to refine a clone, they would at most inject a spirit consciousness or remnant consciousness into the clone. However, Su Zimo's situation was extremely special. He had truly cultivated two primordial spirits, two essence spirits that would not affect each other even if they cultivated separately. These two great primordial spirits were both his, so how could there be a clone? Since they were destined to cultivate separately, he would cultivate two true bodies in the future. The old monk and red-headed ghost stopped arguing. Both of them could accept this result. Of course, There was another important reason why Su Zimo agreed to let the scarlet-haired Een spirit bring his physical body to the Dragon Bone Valley. Red-headed ghost, I have a condition. Su Zimo suddenly said. The red-headed ghost raised his brow and looked at Su Zimo from the corner of his eyes. You've already gotten such a huge advantage. What other conditions do you want? I have to bring another person with me, Su Zimo said. The red-headed ghost rejected flatly without even thinking. What kind of place do you take the Dragon Bone Valley for anyone to enter? Su Zimo gave it some thought and said, to be precise, he's not a human. He's a ferocious flood dragon. After absorbing some dragon chi, he will definitely be able to transform into a true dragon in the future. Another important reason why Su Zimo planned to head to Dragon Bone Valley was because of Solitary Cloud. In order to save him, Solitary Cloud ended up in such a state with his fate unknown. He had to give Solitary Cloud an opportunity so that he would not let Solitary Cloud down for risking his life to follow him. No, it's even more impossible for a flood dragon, the red-headed ghost pursed his lips. Let's put it this way. Someone like you who has drunk my dragon blood for 20 years has an impure bloodline. It's already not bad that I can send you in. What's the big deal about a flood dragon absorbing some dragon chi to cultivate? In other words, even if he can enter, he'll be bullied to death by the true dragons of Dragon Bone Valley. Su Zimo did not back down. If someone bullies him, I'll naturally be there. However, I have to bring him over. If Solitary Cloud could cultivate in an environment like the Dragon Bone Valley, his chances of transforming into a true dragon would be greatly increased. Brat, you only know how to push your luck. F***ck, I even had to stuff a little flood dragon snake in to save you. What's the point of that? The red-headed ghost cursed and glanced at Su Zimo from the corner of his eye. When he saw that the latter did not back down, he grumbled, All right, I'll bring him along then. However, the red-headed ghost changed the topic. I'll put it bluntly first. None of the dragons are kind. Don't blame me if he's bullied to death inside. Thanks, Su Zimo cupped his fists. Pausing for a moment, Su Zimo continued, Red-headed ghost, I have another condition. What? The red-headed ghost jumped up in anger and the chains on his body rattled. He huffed and glared. Rascal, don't push your luck. If you force me into a corner, I won't even care about you anymore. Su Zimo said to himself, I'll bring him in. He has to follow me to that primordial divine spring to recuperate. No way. The red-headed ghost rejected flatly and glared at Su Zimo angrily, gritting his teeth. Do you think that anyone can soak in that divine spring? I've already told you my lips off to let you in. Yet, you want to bring a little flood dragon snake in? Su Zimo thought for a moment. As long as you can save him, it's fine even if he doesn't soak in the primordial divine spring. Leave it to me. It's just a lousy little flood dragon. I can revive him with a single drop of blood. The red-headed ghost said confidently. When he heard that, Su Zimo carefully removed Solitary Cloud from his storage bag and placed it in front of the red-headed ghost. The red-headed ghost took a look and his face darkened, almost cursing. This fellow's injuries were similar to Su Zimo's. His chest was penetrated and his heart was shattered. His essence spirit was almost destroyed and he was only hanging on by a breath of life. He could dissipate at any moment. A single drop of blood from him would most likely kill the flood dragon right away. Frick, frick, frick. The red-headed ghost ground his teeth in silence. Su Zimo shrugged. Look, you still can't do it. Then, I'll have to bring him to that primordial hot spring. It's the divine spring. The red-headed ghost rolled his eyes and cursed, Hot your head. No way. The red-headed ghost pondered for a long time and shook his head in rejection. Then, I'm not going either. Su Zimo went all out. The old monk watched from the side with a smile without saying anything. The red-headed ghost stomped his feet in anger, but there was nothing he could do to Su Zimo. A moment later, the red-headed ghost said, I can agree to your condition, but you can't raise any other conditions. He was truly afraid now. If Su Zimo went crazy and brought a nest of monsters over, the Dragon Bone Valley would be in complete chaos. All right, Su Zimo agreed. The red-headed ghost heaved a sigh of relief. All right, I'll agree to your two conditions as well. Taking a deep breath, the red-headed ghost cut his fingertip and a drop of scarlet blood dripped down, emitting a terrifying aura and immense life force. The red-headed ghost changed hand seals repeatedly and let out a series of strange sounds. The drop of blood hovered in midair without dissipating. After a short while, the drop of blood gradually transformed into a crimson divine dragon. Its horns were lofty and lifelike. "Go on," the red-headed ghost murmured softly. The tiny divine dragon roared and turned into a scarlet streak of light, tearing through the air and vanishing before long. Chapter 1049. Zimo, think about what you're going to take away, the old monk said. The Dragon Bone Valley is the resting place of primordial dragons. Your bloodline is impure and you'll definitely be rejected upon entering. I'm afraid you'll be in a difficult situation. Indeed, Su Zimo's body had an impure bloodline. However, his bloodline was derived from cultivating the mystic classic of the 12 demon kings of the great wilderness. Combined with the blood of the Illumination Dragon, it was even more terrifying than a pure-blooded Illumination Dragon. There's no need to worry too much. No matter where it is, strength reigns supreme, the red-headed ghost said. Whoever's fist is bigger has the final say. If you can beat those little bastards of the Dragon Clan into submission, you will naturally gain their recognition. Su Zimo nodded. He had many treasures on him and his two essence spirits were going to cultivate separately. He had to make careful arrangements. The bronze square tripod was the destiny-dermic weapon of the scarlet-haired Een spirit and naturally had to follow him. The illumination stone could only be used in this body and had to follow the scarlet-haired Een spirit to the Dragon Bone Valley as well. Of course, in Dragon Bone Valley, his greatest reliance was still his physical body and bloodline. This true body of the dragons would continue to cultivate according to the mystic classic of the 12 demon kings of the great wilderness. To a certain extent, the true body of the dragons was a Tao that Dai Yu had chosen for Su Zimo and he would continue walking it to the end. After the black-haired essence spirit reconstructed his body and fused with the immortal, Buddhist and fiend Taos of the human race, it would be another Tao. However, that might not be his Tao. Su Zimo was going to carve out a Tao that belonged to him. Before long, a mighty dragon roar sounded in the skies above the Dragon Burial Valley, shaking the world with a power that could make all living beings submit. The red-headed ghost opened his mouth and let out a dragon roar as well. Immediately after, a divine dragon covered in fiery red scales and towering horns descended in the sky above the ancient temple. The divine dragon's gaze was like a torch as it surveyed the area below. A red beard fluttered beneath its chin and its body burned with flames, exuding a wanton might. A series of fine cracks appeared in the void around the divine dragon. It trembled slightly and a strong gust of wind howled. The old monk frowned. This was the resting place of many experts 10,000 years ago. He was naturally displeased to be disturbed as such. A rusty chain shot out from the mausoleum and tore through the air. It was extremely fast and arrived in an instant. Even the divine dragon in midair did not have time to react before it was heavily whipped. "Transform into your human form and get down here," the red-headed ghost's voice sounded. This majestic divine dragon actually obediently transformed into a middle-aged man in a red robe and descended into the cemetery. "Patriarch, you really didn't die." When the scarlet-robed man caught sight of the red-headed ghost, he was agitated and his eyes were filled with endless joy. Su Zimo could tell that this joy could not be faked. It came from the bottom of his heart. Upon hearing the scarlet-robed man address the red-headed ghost as clan leader, it was not difficult to tell that the red-headed ghost had an extremely high status among dragons back then. He was either the clan leader of the dragons or the clan leader of the Illumination Dragon lineage. However, Su Zimo did not know what kind of status the Torch Dragon had among the dragons. He knew very little about dragons. "Clan leader, the chains on your body?" When the scarlet-robed man caught sight of the chains on the red-headed ghost, his eyes widened with rage and killing intent as he walked forward, wanting to rip the chains apart. "You don't have to care about these scrap metals," the red-headed ghost pouted. If I wanted to, I would have ripped them apart long ago. Why haven't you returned after so many years, clan leader? The scarlet-robed man could not help but ask. The moment he said that, he seemed to have thought of something and turned around suddenly, glaring at the old monk not far away with a murderous aura. It must be that old bald monk. Don't worry, clan leader. That old bald monk's blood chi is weak. Watch me kill him. Su Zimo was secretly speechless. It was no wonder why this scarlet-robed man was from the Illumination Dragon lineage. His temper was way too fiery. Suppress your head. The red-headed ghost shook the chains and whipped the scarlet-robed man once more. The scarlet-robed man could have dodged, but he did not move and allowed the red-headed ghost to whip him. There's another reason why I stayed here all these years. You don't have to know. The red-headed ghost did not explain to him and said in a deep voice, I called you here today for something else. Bring him back to the Dragon Bone Valley and treat his injuries at the primordial divine spring. If the elders in the clan don't allow it, say that it's my intention. As he said that, the red-headed ghost pointed to Su Zimo. Him. The scarlet-robed man glanced at Su Zimo's lifeless body that was slumped on the ground and then at the scarlet-haired Een spirit. Frowning, he asked, Clan leader, this lad's bloodline is impure. There's no need to value him so highly, right? Arrange according to my instructions. The red-headed ghost's tone was unquestionable. Also, there's a snake beside this lad that's severely injured as well. Bring it to the primordial divine spring as well. The scarlet-robed man was stunned. The red-headed ghost was the clan leader of the Illumination Dragon lineage and had an extremely high status among the dragons. However, these arrangements were truly against the rules. Clan leader, this will definitely attract criticism. The scarlet-robed man frowned. Even if the elders of the Illumination Dragon lineage agree, I'm afraid the elders of the other 4 dragon lineages will step in to stop us. Stop what? The red-headed ghost stood up with a bang and his eyes shone with a red light. With a torrential aura, he shouted, I've left the clan for 10,000 years and I can't even arrange for 2 people to recuperate at the primordial divine spring? It's not impossible, but the 2 of them. The scarlet-robed man hesitated. The primordial divine spring was extremely rare. Only some of the dragons with the purest bloodlines and extremely high statuses were qualified to enter. Su Zimo and Solitary Cloud were not qualified at all. To be precise, the 2 of them could not even be considered as dragons of the lowest lineage among dragons. The red-headed ghost fell silent. After a long time, he looked at the scarlet-robed man and asked, Do you know why I called you here? I don't know. The scarlet-robed man had a respectful expression. The red-headed ghost pointed at Su Zimo and said word by word, From this day forth, you'll treat him as my bloodline and son. The scarlet-robed man's expression changed starkly as he exclaimed. Su Zimo was shocked as well. He often bickered with the red-headed ghost, to think that he would have such weight in the latter's heart. The red-headed ghost said slowly, Is my child qualified to recuperate at the primordial divine spring? The scarlet-robed man nodded without hesitation. The red-headed ghost continued, Go back and tell those old fogies of the Illumination Dragon lineage that from this day forth, I'll no longer occupy the title of Zhu. Leave it to the juniors to fight for. Clan leader. The scarlet-robed man was moved. Su Zimo was confused when he heard that, not understanding the meaning behind the title of Zhu that the red-headed ghost mentioned. The red-headed ghost looked into the distance with an unresolvable sorrow in the depths of his eyes. After a while, he retracted his gaze and looked at Su Zimo at the side. There was no hostility or killing intent on his face, and there was a rare benevolence in his eyes. If Yenhua was still around, he would be the same as you. That bravery, that fearlessness, that persistence and that sincerity. When he heard that, the scarlet-robed man had a sorrowful expression and tears welled in his eyes. The old monk sighed deeply and shook his head as well. You're tuning in to the Passion Pages YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.